I'm going to start the show by asking you a question. Tolos and Cole Bryson, what do Tennessee and Oregon have in common? Out of both getting absolutely shellacked by Ohio State, what do they have in common?
Ooh, not colors.
No
colors in common, Diesel. No past coaches I can think of. That's a tough one. What do Tennessee and Oregon have in common?
Both were widely considered two of the 12 best teams available to be put into the college football playoff field. Both of them got their asses absolutely shellacked in the 12-team playoff. Welcome into Wire to Wire. He's Cole Bryson. My name is Diesel. This is our first time on the air together in, 12 days or so?
No, longer than that. How about 13
years?
15 days?
It feels like forever.
15 days, Diesel.
It feels like a long time since we've been on the air together.
That's half a month.
Everybody said, Cole, that this playoff should be 12 best teams no matter what. Yes. The 12 best teams should get into the playoff. I don't care what you say. The 12 best teams should get in. Well, guess what? Two of the 12 best teams got their asses absolutely smacked by Ohio State. So that kind of blows up that whole argument that the 12 best teams should be the only criteria that matters when it comes to building the college football playoff field. Text into the show now, 844-FAN-PHONE. We've made it simpler for you than ever. Text and call, 844-326-3663. You don't have to start your text with keyword fan anymore. Just good, text 844-FAN-PHONE. That's F-O-N-E. Cole, look, I know that we're talking anecdotal evidence, but now that we actually have evidence, not pure supposition, we're finding out that just because you're one of the 12 best teams in the country doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to play epic 38-35 type football games in the college football playoff. I tried to tell you people who are screaming into the text line for the last month and a half that we were going to have blowouts of good football teams in this playoff. No matter what you do, you're going to have blowouts. So making the only criteria that matters, a subjective 12 best teams should get in, is a flawed way of building a college football playoff field.
Yeah, and you know what? Blowouts are part of not just the sport of college football, but blowouts are part of the sport in general.
Sure.
Because I was talking about this on Monday, and a texter was going back and forth with me about this very subject and pointed out, in good measure, Diesel, that even in the NFL, what you and I have talked about, has a good playoff system. Even in the first round, there are blowouts.
Sure.
There are wild card blowouts every single year. So I agree with you that best teams shouldn't be like the end-all, be-all. I don't know. Maybe it's just because like we have this picture-perfect image in our brain of wanting the playoffs to be all close games. And maybe that's our fault for thinking that.
It's impossible.
I know. Want last night's game was not last night, but Texas, Arizona State, that's what I want.
Maybe it's a generational thing because I brought this quote up many, many times on the show. Maybe it's because I grew up watching the movie Jurassic Park. I loved that movie. I loved Jeff Goldblum's character, the chaos mathematician guy who says no matter what you do, you can never engineer an outcome that you want to happen. You cannot do that.
I know.
You cannot do that. You try to tweak the rules and change the rules and do this to the rules and do that to the rules to make sure that you get close games, and you're still going to have blowouts. It is mathematically impossible. Life finds a way. You cannot engineer the outcome that you want. So I think this 12-team playoff structure, the way we have it now, is perfect. It's absolutely perfect. Think about this, Cole. If the founding fathers were alive today, or if we had social media in 1776, how many people would have been screaming to change the Constitution immediately before we even had a full round to find out what was going on, to find out how this thing was going to play out?
Yeah.
Sure, we've changed the Constitution with amendments over the years, but it's been slowly, over time. We didn't rush in before we even got a full data set, which is an incomplete amount of data to say, okay, we got to blow this whole thing up and start over.
Here's what I find interesting. We're going to get back into this point at 4 o'clock, Diesel, but I understand like that you're never going to have this perfect system. And I know that we talked about this. You and I and Smitty talked about this a couple of weeks ago about, hey, let this thing play out. And now that we've kind of seen it play out, I don't disagree with you fully that like we need to just completely blow it up, because I don't think we do. But what I do find concerning is the fact that, and I think you and I brought this up a few weeks ago or a few weeks before the college football playoff started. All of the teams, Diesel, with a bye, every single team that got a bye, those teams were 0-3, but all the 3 teams that won were Vegas favorites. So according to Vegas, the bye teams that got the bye, according to the committee, weren't even favorites according to Vegas. I'm not saying let Vegas decide the 12 teams. So the teams, Diesel, that got the byes were underdogs. Think about that. All 3 teams that got the byes were underdog. So while the 8 seed beat the 1, there have actually been 0 upsets thus far in the college football playoff.
How many times did we see that play out in Major League Baseball playoffs, where the team that didn't play, the team that sat in the first round of the playoffs while the wild card was going on, even if they have their practice squads out there playing baseball against them, Atlanta Braves, you're still not playing meaningful baseball. You can get cold. You can get tight. You can spend too much time thinking about it and trying to outsmart the other team, and then you just go out there and you don't play particularly good football. I find it fascinating, Cole, that 2 of the teams that people thought didn't deserve to be in the 12-team playoff ended up giving us some of the best games in this playoff so far. Clemson was seen as an outsider, and they played Texas fairly close. That was a 2-score game. It wasn't an epic game, but Cade Klubnik threw for 336 and 3 touchdowns against the number 1 pass defense in the country. And y'all would say that team doesn't deserve to be in because they were ranked, 16 going into the playoff. That team shouldn't be in. Okay, well, now you don't get that game. How about the fact that Arizona State took Texas to an absolute nail-biter of a double overtime game? That team wouldn't get in if you went by the 12 best team model. And Cole, there were some other teams. I know that SMU was completely outclassed when they played at Penn State. And I know Kirk Herbstreit threw those words around like a jerk, saying that Indiana was outclassed against Notre Dame. And they lost by 10, by the way. They played a bad half of football, and they lost by 10. And Kirk Herbstreit's out there saying outclassed. Outclassed? When you lose by 10
that
in
game,
the playoff?
That game wasn't close.
I know it wasn't close, but the final score matters.
It does.
They weren't outclassed. They just got beat by a better football team.
See, I did agree with Kirk on that one. I did agree that Indiana just wasn't even like on the field that day. And again, to your point, it was a 10-point game, final score. Sometimes the final score isn't indicative. Now, I will say this. I was shocked yesterday when I was watching Texas-Arizona State. The start of that game compared to the ending of it, I mean, nobody, I don't care who you are, thought that game was going to be close after the first 5 minutes of the game, Diesel. Texas just pounced right on them 14-0. And you know what, to your point, like, you never know, like, going into the playoff, you never know what teams can have a really good day or what teams can have a really bad day. I thought that you learned a lot about Arizona State. And I believe JD brought this up on Monday. He said, Cole, Arizona State could be the team that proves you wrong. They almost did. Arizona State should have won, should have, could have, would have, right? Should have won that game, had every chance to. It's hard to gauge, Diesel, which teams on any given day are going to be that team that's capable of being the Cinderella. Boise State wasn't. I mean, that Boise State really, from the time the game was started, that never even looked like they had a chance. I thought they might keep it closer, but you just never know.
Put it this way, Boise State scored more points against Penn State than did West Virginia, Illinois, a ranked team, UCLA, Wisconsin, and Washington. It wasn't a particularly close game at the end when you look at the final score.
Sure.
But the first half of that football game was a good football game. I mean, they made mistakes. Boise State made mistakes. And is that because they were an inferior football team, or is it because they had extra time? Because we saw Oregon come out with basically the same set of mistakes against Ohio State yesterday, and they got absolutely pounded. Now let's turn it to the teams that everybody said should be in the playoff. Those teams should be in. Clemson didn't deserve to be in. Boise State didn't deserve to be in. SMU didn't deserve to be in. We should have put in Miami. We should have put in South Carolina.
Easy.
We should have put in Alabama. You know how those 3 teams fared through their bowl games? 0-3. So miss me with those teams should have been put in. Miss me with that conversation. Now, I had a shouting match back and forth with Rob. Actually, Rob kind of shouted at me. I just put up a wall on social media saying
it was a good match, though.
Arguing that those teams that we saw on the field in their bowl games, Miami, South Carolina, and Alabama, were not the Miami, South Carolina, and Alabama teams that we would have seen had they made the college football playoff. And I said, Rob, I do not accept those pansy-ass excuses. I do not accept those weak-ass excuses that those guys sat out. They weren't interested. Guess what? I don't care. Miss me with that argument. You know why? Because all those teams, all those players, they wore the same uniform. They were coached by the same coaches. They played in all the same games. They went to all the same meetings. They were recruited by the same guys. I don't give a rip if you tell me that the teams we saw in those bowl games were not the teams that would have been on the field had they played in the college football playoff. I don't care about that lame-ass argument.
So I think two things can be true. I really do. I think in every situation, it's possible for two things to be true, Diesel. I do think in this situation, two things can be true. I understand your point. I also understand what Rob was saying. To your point, I'll side with you first, and then I'll side with Rob and go against you. To your point, those guys are still recruited and expected to do their job, right? Like, it's not basketball where you have one or two guys fall off and one or two guys make or break a team. It's not basketball. It's football. If your one or two or three best players aren't there, you should have guys that can step up and continue to be in the game. I agree with you on that.
I thought the SEC, it's all about depth and next man up, not if one player doesn't play, we're bleep out of luck.
Right. No, I agree with that too. So the flip side that I will play, Diesel, is the best players that aren't playing, if they are the best players, I do give them a little grace in Carolina sense, like Rob was talking about with you, with Rocket Sanders and Kyle Kennard, and then Nick Emmanwori, who didn't play in the second half, kind of pulled a Cam Ward, right? So, like, I understand that side of it because the best players do impact the game. You saw that with Texas yesterday. I'm not saying they don't, and that's why I do think that two sides can be true here, or two things can be true. But to your point, it's not basketball. It's not 5-on-5. And when your best two players go down, all of a sudden, you don't have anybody. You still have players. Maybe they're not as good as Kyle Kennard. Maybe they're not as good as Nick Emmanwori or Rocket Sanders. But this shows that, hey, here's what we need to be talking about. The fact that South Carolina had their 2.5 best players out, right? This shows the concern, Diesel, now moving forward for what the portal is that we've talked about, how it gives, how it takes. If your best players are portal players, that's fine. But what we really need to be talking about is, oh, crap, if that's what you look like without them, how hard is it going to be to replicate what you did this past year every single year? That's going to be tough.
Think about it like this. Think about a football team as an M&M. Right? You got that
like
hard, the crunchy
rapper
shell. No, like the candy. You got that hard, crunchy shell on the outside, and you got soft chocolate on the inside. And that may be what a lot of these football teams are. And somebody made a similar analogy on our show. Might have been Smitty, might have been you. I can't remember who it was, who basically said that a lot of these football teams are really a shell of themselves. Like, you've got great talent at your ones. You've got nothing at 2s and 3s because you can't develop them. You can't keep them around, and they're entering the transfer portal and they're leaving you behind. So you really can't build quality depth the way that you need to. And it's a scary place that this game is going to, Cole. So look, I love the fact that two of the teams that weren't supposed to be in the college football playoff ended up giving us good football games. I love that some of the teams that everybody pointed at should have been there got their asses absolutely kicked by Ohio State, both of them. I mean, maybe that says a lot more about Ohio State than it does those teams. It's tough to say,
man.
But I mean, when undeserving teams, when quote unquote undeserving teams are giving us the most interesting and compelling games in the playoff that we've seen so far, it should slow your roll just a little bit. Everybody's saying 12 best teams have to be the teams that get in.
And listen, I say thank God for Arizona State playing good in the second half yesterday, because Diesel, if that game yesterday turned into a blowout, we'd be talking about every game. I mean, really, thank goodness Arizona State played good in the second half, because I talked about it Monday, how blowout. Clemson, Texas was close, and then Indiana, Notre Dame final score was close, but there were a lot of blowouts. I'll tell you this, for radio purposes, for TV purposes, and revenue purposes, going back to what I said in the very beginning of the show, I have this perfect picture of what I want it to look like. But for radio purposes, this is great. It's great.
Yeah.
It's something to talk about. It's the same reason they expanded the playoffs, to make more money, to have more shows every week. I do find it interesting, though, Diesel. And I don't know what's written underneath the 12-team playoff in terms of how they can adjust. I will find it very interesting to see if the college football playoff tweaks anything heading into next. I don't know if they can do that or not.
I think it may take a little bit more data of more than just 3 teams that received a bye all getting beaten. Maybe they go 0-4. We'll just have to wait and see what happens tonight. But maybe this is the impetus for expanding the playoff to 16, getting rid of first-round byes, showing that the first-round bye ends up being more penal than it does being a benefit
who saw
to your
that
team.
coming?
Yeah, I mean, that may be the way to do it. And, hey, if you want to say no more first-round byes and no more top 4 seeds to the conference champions, then maybe you say, let's expand this thing to 16. And if you win your conference championship, you're guaranteed a top 8. You're going to be guaranteed a top half of the field seating. But outside of that, nobody gets a bye.
All right, let's go to the text line. And, gosh, I'm going to have to untrain myself. I used to saying –
I had to write it down.
You got to untrain myself. Got to untrain you, Tolos, as well. The text line, now the same as the phone line, 844-FAN-PHONE, 844-326-3663. You don't even have to use a keyword like Diesel said earlier. Let's see. JT and Greer said the month off hurts the games. Talking about the buys, and maybe it does. I'm not saying they should turn around and play the next week, but maybe it does.
Maybe 10 days.
10 days. I like 10 days.
Yeah.
Texter says, Diesel, Oregon would have been there anyway. They were number 1 in the polls. We will never know, but take the stinking bye out of the playoffs. If Georgia loses tonight, every team with a bye will have lost.
And
Mark L.
If Georgia loses tonight, Carson Beck being out may be a big part of that. I know Carson Beck has kind of fallen off and hadn't been himself over the past couple of weeks, obviously due to injury, but that experience matters, and it's going to be interesting to find out what happens tonight.
I'll tell you this, not to get on a tangent because we're going to run to a break in a few minutes. That game that starts in 40 minutes from now, Georgia-Notre Dame, I have no idea. And usually I have a little bit of pulse. I can usually predict, which team's going to win, which I've done pretty well with the college teams this college football playoff, Diesel. I have no idea who to pick in Georgia Notre Dame. Part of me tells me, hey, go with Kirby Smart, go with the experienced team who's been here. Part of me says, hey, Notre Dame's defense is for real. I question Notre Dame. I question whether they're legit or not. I question whether this early in Marcus Freeman's tenure, they're built for this moment, Diesel. I don't know. I have no idea on the pulse of where to go and who to lean to in this game. If you ask me to pick right now, I think I'd probably pick Georgia. But if I pick Georgia, Diesel, I'm not really 100% confident. I really don't have a ton of confidence either way right now.
It's gonna be fun to watch, and obviously. Tragic situations are the reason why we have this game being played today.
Yeah, it's terrible.
Some of you already saw this. I posted this earlier. One of our Odyssey family members was one of the people that was killed in that attack in New Orleans, not from Odyssey Greenville, but from our greater Odyssey company. I didn't know the guy, but still, that's absolutely tragic what happened down there. But that's also spreading these college football playoff games out for us just a little bit.
It is spreading it, and you're right. Terrible situation. Just like, even though you and I are excited to have football today, it's terrible that we're having it today and not last night because of what happened. So to your point, it's absolutely tragic for one of our Odyssey team members out of I can't remember the market they were out of, but
New Jersey, New York,
something like that. And just can't even imagine. So thoughts and prayers go out to his family for what happened earlier. And I'll tell you, I will get his name just so I can be respectful. Billy DeMaio. Billy DeMaio was the one that we lost from Odyssey in that accident. But Diesel, a little bit of new news. We talked about this on Monday because we saw it coming to fruition, and it has. It has happened. Clemson has made a coaching change. We need Clemson fans, Clemson Tolos out there to give us your reaction. If you haven't heard, we'll get into it next. Diesel, our Tolos are really awesome. They're really fantastic. But I just wonder, without giving it away, no, not the text line, how long do you think it'll take them to notice? Notice the newness as you see me wink at you. What's new about Wire to Wire in 2025? I'm surprised they haven't noticed already because it is going to the stream as well. But what's new? I don't know. What's new?
Some people miss things that are just right in front of their faces.
And literally, I was gonna turn the volume up, and the bed died. So that's what I get for trying to be funny there. All right, he is Diesel. I'm Cole Bryson. Clemson football in the news for the right reasons if you look at most of the Clemson fan base. So there were a lot of mixed reports in the last few days, Diesel. On Monday, I brought on Will Vandervoort of the Clemson Insider, and he said, look, it's not official yet, but I expect Wes Goodwin to be fired, to put it very blunt, right? Well, this morning, Chapel Fowler, the state newspaper last night, there were some reports out, and the state was kind of shutting it down. But the Clemson Insider did say this morning that, look, from their sources, they have been told that Wes Goodwin is no longer a part of the Clemson program. So the Clemson Tigers will be looking for a new defensive coordinator for 2025. Clemson fans, I want to hear your reaction, how you feel about this decision. I posted this on our Facebook page. I want to get to some of these comments on our Facebook page, Diesel, because Clemson fans were very outspoken there. But immediate reaction, good decision, bad decision. Is this Dabo Swinney feeling a little bit of heat maybe from higher ups that something has to give, that Wes Goodwin is now removed as the defensive coordinator? Your instant reaction, Diesel.
That's a great decision. Clemson's defense was a big reason why they lost the games that they lost this year, right? I mean, outside of the South Carolina game where Cade Klubnik threw that interception there to seal it, Clemson's defense has not been great this year. And there were times, Cole, like with the performances that Clemson gave offensively, even in some of the games that they lost, if they had a serviceable defense, they would have won those games.
Yeah. Texas.
I mean, Texas. And outside of that South Carolina game, and obviously the Georgia game to start the season, well, a good defense would have won them games.
I think they would have. We saw the Clemson defense going all the way back to the very first game of the year against Georgia. Clemson defense was good in the first half. They kind of fell apart in the second half. Clemson's defense was, to your point, a reason they lost a lot of those games. Thinking just most recently to the Texas game, Cade Klubnik was fantastic. Cade Klubnik was really, really good against Texas. You and I, how many times did we talk about they weren't going to be able to run the ball? They weren't going to be able to run the ball against Texas. They didn't run the ball against Texas. And to your point, what if a Brent Venables-led defense was present for the game against Texas? Who knows what Quinn Ewers would have done? I can tell you this. Yesterday, Arizona State in the second half did a pretty good job of defending Texas. Now, late in the game, obviously, double overtime, Texas won the game. But Arizona State made really good adjustments defensively. That's my biggest problem, Diesel. I said on Monday, I felt like there was way too much meat left on the bone defensively for Clemson. I didn't feel as if it were a player personnel problem. I asked Will about that Monday, and he really didn't either. I hate to put it all on Wes Goodwin because that's not fair to put 100% of it on him. But, like, the decisions that happened throughout the course of the year with the rotation or lack thereof, and Sammy Brown not being on the field in the fourth quarter against South Carolina, there were a lot of question marks, and I think that those questions had to be answered. And I think it's good on Dabo, but I also think that Dabo Swinney making this move shows that, hey, something has to be done. This having an okay defense is not living up to the standard of what was the best standard for Clemson's defense, which carried them to a couple national championships.
Yeah, I mean, giving up 35, even in a win to NC State, a team that went to go on 6-7 over the course of the season, giving up 31 points in a win to Virginia, giving up 21 points in a loss, 33 points in the game against Louisville, 31 points to SMU in the ACC championship game. Those are not Clemson defenses. And for the most part of the season, Cole, they were playing decent enough defense. I mean, in the Georgia game, obviously you add to that as well, but they were, they held App State to under 21 points. They held Stanford and Florida State, Wake Forest, Virginia Tech, the Citadel, and a handful of teams. South Carolina even held them to 17 points in a loss. If you had a good enough defense, you hold those teams down. You don't give up lots of yards. You don't take your foot off the gas or take your boot off the throat of a team that could come back and beat you.
And they were 5th in the ACC. Like, you're not even top 3 in the ACC. That's, again, 5th in the ACC is telling to me.
It's tough to win football games when you force the offense to score 30 points to win.
Well,
if you say you have to give us 4 touchdowns to win this game.
And it's also tough when you get late in the season, Diesel, and war of attrition starts kicking in, and you don't have a run game. Phil Maffa gets hurt. Like, let's think back to the national championships that Clemson's won. I don't want to act like they didn't have elite quarterbacks, because they did, but some points during the season, they had guys bend but don't break, bend but not break. They had guys make plays. They had dudes on that defense during those national championship runs that were just elite at times. I don't say elite for the entirety of the season, but they had dudes that made plays when it mattered. So if they couldn't run the ball particularly well, guess what? Clemson's defense would bail you out. That defense has been long gone. Wes Goodwin rumored, Diesel, to go to Oklahoma to be Brent Venables' defensive coordinator, which is wild because Brent Venables is kind of like doing this. Aren't you doing this if you're Brent Venables looking at your – if you're the AD?
Was Wes on staff at any capacity when Brent was still there? Okay, so maybe Brent feels like, hey, here's a smart guy that I know his quality, and I know that I can help him improve as a defensive coordinator. Maybe that's the mindset. If you're Brent Venables, it's an iffy decision, it's funny because we've always commented on just how similar Dabo and Shane Beamer have had the way they've built their programs. And it's almost at this point as if Dabo is following in Shane Beamer's steps and keeping Wes Goodwin around a little bit longer than he should have, not being willing to look at the writing on the wall and say, what we're doing isn't working. Not going to keep him around for another year. We got to move on from this guy, but he's finally made the decision to do it. And, you can't run your program entirely as a good old boys network in promoting from within and hoping that the guys that you got are going to stick around for 10 years. It doesn't work that way for every coach and for every team.
You know what's interesting? JD, or was it T Swizzle, said, go get Steve Wilks. JD responded and says, Steve Wilks isn't going to Clemson, but would be a solid choice. Obviously, you said something that worries me, and I think it should worry Clemson fans as well. Dabo Swinney in the past has hired from within. Dabo Swinney has been loyal to his guys. I don't know, Diesel, if he's going to hire from within with this hire. If I had to bet money right now, I would say he does not hire from within. I think he goes outside. But for a defense that was ranked 62nd in total defense in 2024, I think that you have to get this right, because I'm not saying like his job's on the line, but like you've fallen already from where you were from when Brent Venables was there. And if you get this hire wrong and keep falling, all of a sudden there's going to be some pressure on Dabo. There has been questions. Lorenzo Ward, who's on staff, Diesel, he's in an analyst role and got promoted before the season started. He was the defensive coordinator for the South Carolina Gamecocks. He had a really, really good defense in South Carolina. He's on staff. I've seen his name be brought up in terms of if Dabo were to go from the inside, maybe they hire Lorenzo Ward. I don't think personally that's the best hire, but I do think he'll go outside. I think there might be a little pressure. Hey, you got to go get the best guy available.
Look, if I learned anything from John Wick Chapter 4, how you do anything is how you do everything. And Dabo Swinney has been consistent. He does everything the same way, whether it be keeping player personnel around as long as he possibly can, promoting from within, rewarding people for being loyal to him by giving them jobs, by whatever it may be, by giving them NIL down the road instead of up front, like most people are doing in this league. Just because you're going outside for a creative mind doesn't necessarily mean that you can't then bring that level of creativity into the fold and keep them around, right? I mean, you have to be careful of what kind of coach you hire. You maybe don't want to go out and hire a defensive coordinator that has been at 4 different schools in the last 4 years. Maybe you want to find somebody who will go somewhere and stay on staff for 2 to 3 years, but is really bright and is working their way up in this business. Maybe you can keep them around for 5 by being loyal to them and keeping them happy. So, I mean, you can do both. You can have the best of both of those worlds, bringing in fresh new talent and remaining loyal to them down the road.
So T Swizzle brought up Tim Banks, the defensive coordinator at Tennessee. There has been a lot of traction behind this from what I've been told. A lot of rumors going around with Tim Banks' name attached to them, primarily a defensive backs coach, but you have guys like Reed and Khan on the defensive side of the ball who are also in question whether or not they'll be brought back or not. I have heard, and again, this is not 100% factual yet, but I've heard that Wes Goodwin Diesel is not going to be the only change. I've heard that there might be some other changes on the staff, especially on the defense side of the football, maybe on the offensive well when it comes to C.J. Spiller. But Mickey Khan on the defense side of the ball, I don't know if he's going to be brought back or not. We haven't heard. I mean, heck, the school hasn't even made an official announcement that Wes Goodwin's gone yet. We're hearing all these different reports, but we haven't seen anything official yet. But, we've been told that, hey, look, he's no longer – I was told this morning that his office is already cleaned out. That's coming from somebody pretty close to the program. I think Tim Banks at Tennessee would be a really good candidate. He's also a candidate for the Miami defensive coordinator job as well, if that were to be a possibility. Diesel, I've heard conversations that link him to Miami, but if Dabo could somehow get Tim Banks from Tennessee, I think that'd be a heck of a hire.
Yeah, it's going to be fascinating to see, and it's good to see that Dabo is not resting on laurels. Dabo is not saying, I can fix him, I can help him improve his defense. Look, you got to be willing to change. People figure you out over time, and that's why you have to have not only somebody who has one brilliant scheme, whether it be offense or defense, you got to have somebody who is brilliant at coming up with new schemes so that teams cannot learn your tendencies and cannot scheme against you.
And look, nothing against Lorenzo Ward. He spent time in Alabama when Dabo was there and learned a lot from some really good coaches. He was at Chattanooga, I believe, before he came to Clemson last year. This was his first year at Clemson in 2024. I just don't think Lorenzo Ward is the best hire out there. I think he'd be a good hire, maybe like a B+ hire, but I don't think Lorenzo Ward, who was a former player at Alabama, played with Dabo there, if I'm not mistaken, I don't think he'd be the best hire. So it's going to be interesting to see. We'll talk to Grayson Mann of Tiger Net about this coming up at 4:20, but be very interesting to see if he does go inside or pull from the inside. I don't think he should. Also want to remind you before you send it to a break, Diesel, today it's been a long time since we've done this because I was off the Wednesday before Christmas. 5 o'clock today, Tolos. Mark it on your calendar. Do not forget Tolo Takeover today at 5 p.m.
Yeah, and do not forget you will be calling and texting on the same line, 844-FAN-PHONE, 844-326-3663. When we come back, Cole, we have bemoaned the way college football players' mentalities have changed over the past few years through NIL and the transfer portal. Well, here's a shining example of everything that is right in college football today. We'll get to that next on the Fan Upstate. You know, if you listen to the pundits talk about
That's us,
the
right?
way I guess so. We are. If you listen to people like us tell you that all these college kids are selfish, all they care about is a payday. They're going to bounce. They're going to go somewhere else. They don't love your school the way that you love your school. Well, listen to my man, Cam Skattebo, running back from Arizona, and tell me this audio does not give you chills.
ASU has changed my life forever in a good way. Simple. They've supported me through everything, put me in a position to be successful. So I thank everybody in the ASU community and, Coach Dillingham and his staff and this kid next to me right here. They changed my life forever.
Can I get about 40 more dudes just like him?
Yeah, I'll
on
take one
every
too.
single team in college football. That's a football player right there. That's somebody who bleeds Arizona State gold and red. I mean, that's got to be promising audio. And I hope, Cole, that the voices like us keep sharing those examples, put those examples up on a pedestal, make the truth that we all know, that the players who bounce from school to school to school to school looking for a paycheck are simply selfish individuals, and that they should aspire to be Cam Skattebo.
I will tell you why I think he and other people and players have that philosophy, have that mindset. You're talking about someone, Diesel, who was born and raised in California, attended high school at Rio Linda High School. Coming out of high school, where he, by the way, rushed for 3,550 yards and 42 touchdowns and a state championship. He had 0 D1 offers. 0. Not one, not 0.
How do you rush for 3,000 yards and not get an offer?
And 42 and a state championship.
What?
So he had to go to his hometown, local Sacramento State University. I don't even know if they're university. Nobody knows. Nobody, even they don't know if they're university or college. Sacramento State, he goes 2021. He rushed for 520, 6 touchdowns, didn't do much. After the 2021 season, he really picked it up. He had a breakout season in 2022. Diesel, 1,300 yards, 7 touchdowns, while also throwing a touchdown and returning an onside kick for a touchdown. He was named All Big Sky and All Big Sky Offensive Player of the Year, also an FCS All-American. After 2022, well, again, with 0 offers now, enters the portal. So we're talking about the portal being good for this situation for a guy like Cam Skattebo. Transfers to Arizona State, where he really didn't break out until week 4 against USC. All of a sudden, this guy comes on the scene and is one of college football's most entertaining running backs. That's why, to me, my opinion, that's why this guy is not going to sit out, because guess what? He remembers where he came from.
Yeah.
He knows that, hey, 3 years ago, I wasn't supposed to be here. So I'm going to play every game. That, to me, where you come from, what you had to go through, your integrity, your character, to me, that's why Cam Skattebo was playing on Saturday or yesterday.
Took a team that, weren't they picked dead last in the conference at the beginning of the season, took them to the college football playoff. And if it weren't for a bad missed targeting call, probably should have won that football game. And we can argue that. And
it was bad.
And look, yeah, it was a bad missed call. There were other bad calls in that game that also had an effect on the game as well. I never look at one call as the reason why the game went the way that it did. It's always a series of calls. It's a series of plays. It's 4 quarters worth of football, not just one play that changes the outcome of a football game. But by all rights, Cole, they should have been in a position to win that football game, considering how many times have we seen that exact play be called targeting? How many times have we seen targeting that wasn't even close to being targeting called as targeting? I mean, that was as textbook targeting as it gets.
No, it was.
For them to not call it. I mean, it's a blown call in my mind, and it certainly changed the outcome of the game, but it is what it is. 293 carries, 1,700 yards, 21 touchdowns, should have been a finalist, should have had a really good shot of winning the Heisman Trophy. Cam Skattebo is everything that's right with college football. And I want more guys on my team like that. And look, he knew that he was probably going to get some offers and get some, have an opportunity to go play in the NFL, but he played the entire football game, unlike Cam set up the second half, Ward, who screwed his football team. Cam Scadaboo knew that he had to do everything he could to help his football team win. Give me as many of those guys as you can.
His mom tweeted after the game a picture of him or her and Cam and said, such a crazy game. So proud of him and his whole team. They proved why they deserved to be there. They don't quit. He put everything he had into that game, and I'll always feel blessed to have been given the opportunity to join the Sun Devil Nation. And she's right. They didn't quit. Like, I'm sitting in a local restaurant yesterday watching the game with people beside me, on both sides watching, and that game was over. I mean, Arizona State was dead to rights. They had no business. I said, this one, I even tweeted it. Another blowout, right? This game is absolutely over. And they had no business coming back, but they did. I think that shows what kind of heart that team had because they're led by somebody. I don't know what he'll be in the NFL. I hope he'll be something. I know that you're going to have speed. We'll see what he runs in the combine.
He's got a lot of versatility, though.
Yeah, he does, and strength. I mean, like that one play yesterday against Texas, the defensive tackle, one-on-one, defensive tackle just stood him up. He was dead to rights there. And he just overpowers him and bullies his way in the end zone for a touch. He's phenomenal to watch.
Yeah, I love it when Hart wins out and Hart has an opportunity to really show you what it means to a football team to have heart. And like we were talking about in the last segment, being a shell of a football team, you can have talented guys. What happens to that talent when the game's not going your way? Can that talent find some heart down the stretch? It's sad to see Cam Ward sit out and probably could have won that game and should have won that game decisively for Miami. But you got guys like Cam Scadaboo that play that will their team to a very, very exciting and compelling finish.
Want to remind you there is a new way to text the show. If you have the old number in your phone, if you just tuned in to Wire to Wire for the first time this year, well, get in the boat. Everybody else did too. New year, 2025, get it. But take that old number out, 71307. Get rid of it, delete it, wash it away, throw it in the trash. One number now does it all. 844-FAN-PHONE. That's 844-326-3663. That's the number to call the show. That's also the number to text the show. And
have you written 2024 yet by accident?
No, but I haven't written a year at all yet. So
have you, Tola?
When y'all wonder why something doesn't fire in a couple of days, you'll know. When we get a text, why hadn't this fired on the air? Why we have dead air? Well, I probably put 2024. I hadn't written it yet, though. No? You don't write as much as you used to. You know that? You notice that?
Yeah.
We have a text about
my hand now.
I know, it's true. Upset Picks Challenge that we will answer on the other side, as well as we'll kick this thing off. Riley Leonard going at it, seeing if he can knock off Georgia, and we'll get back into the college football playoff. That's next. Just over 24 hours from a horrific attack, Diesel, that they're calling a terrorist attack. 24 hours later, just over 24 hours, we are playing a football game in the same city. You and I have a TV on here in the studio that's showing the security, and you kind of just get chills. You kind of get goosebumps because it almost doesn't seem real what's kind of happening and unfolded in a tragic incident yesterday morning early that they're calling a terrorist attack in New Orleans, same city, Diesel, where this Sugar Bowl is being played. Georgia was not far at all, their team hotel, from where that incident happened. So we're about to kick this thing off, and it's great, but at the same time, it's kind of eerie.
I've walked that before. I've gone down to a game and spent some time walking around Bourbon Street and then walked the 6 or 7 blocks over to the Mercedes-Benz Dome, but the Superdome.
Yeah.
And so it's not far. It's senseless. All this news is coming out. I never try to form an opinion immediately because things always develop. New information always comes out. So we'll have to wait and see if this was part of a coordinated thing.
Yeah, it's just terrible.
And what maybe how much worse this could have been and could have transpired. But obviously, as you mentioned earlier, our thoughts are certainly with a member of our Odyssey team. Yeah. One of our teammates, Billy DeMaio from the New Jersey Odyssey market, was down there and was celebrating on Bourbon Street, and he was one of the 15 that were killed there. And it was it's just awful, man.
Awful.
And things like this certainly are going to give some people pause and say, I'm not going down there. It's certainly going to change the way pretty much every city has to think about security. They have to think. I mean, we've seen the video. There was a police car blocking the street, and somebody just turns around the police car. I've heard, now I don't know if this is true or not, but I've heard that there should have been those security pylons that go down into the concrete and go down into the street to block off that street entirely. But for staffing reasons or something like that, they weren't able to get those installed before that happened. Either way, it's just truly awful.
It is. It's terrible. That's just absolutely horrific. Nonetheless, we are about to kick off between Georgia and Notre Dame here any moment now. It's just a few minutes after 4:00. This game was supposed to be last night. They moved it to today, obviously, and Greg McElroy, those guys are getting you ready. As Gunnar Stockton, first quarterback to make first career start in a college football playoff game. Think about that, the pressure that's on that guy.
He's got a lot of pedigree, though. I mean, he's a highly touted, highly recruited guy himself.
They were just showing him in high school at Rayburn County, Georgia, where he played high school ball with head coach Jabo Shaw, the brother of Connor Shaw, who was just the Greenville head coach here in Greenville, who left, and I heard is going back to Georgia to coach high school ball. So that'll be very interesting. We'll keep you updated on the game as it goes along. I want to remind you about the new text line, 844-FAN-PHONES, the new way to get in touch with the show. Diesel, before we get back into the college football playoff, a texter from the 321 ask, hey guys, are we picking this week in the Upset Picks Challenge? The answer would be
no. The Upset Picks Challenge is over.
Yes.
The Upset Picks Challenge is over.
I don't have to lose anymore. No more losing.
No, the challenge is over, and the reason why, texter, is we split bowl games up to between pre-Christmas bowl games and post-Christmas bowl games, and then if we did just the remaining college football playoff games that were left, there wouldn't be any games to pick, right? I mean, we could change the rules on a fly, but everybody's going to be picking the same game. So there's really not a point in doing the Upset Picks Challenge when there's only 4 teams left, or 5 at this point, 5 teams left in the college football playoff. So we separated it that way. Maybe in the future we start thinking of ways that we can do a closest to the pin type of prediction for the national championship game to keep this thing going all the way to the very, very bitter end. But this year, we didn't want to change things on the fly and start adding and complicating this thing. So the challenge is over. Dan B has been crunching the numbers now. I don't think he's even come out of his basement.
Man.
He's been in there working on this thing so hard to make sure we got it right. Now, here's the thing, Cole. A lot of you Tolos didn't get in your picks for the bowl season.
Mm.
And so a lot of you are getting -2s because you didn't send your picks in. Well, that's your fault for not Toloing.
You got to Tolo.
You got to Tolo.
Turn it on, leave it on. That's what we ask you to do right here on the Fan Upstate.
And per damn right on top of things.
That's what you call Tolo.
He
right
says there are only 2 live picks left. One person has Virginia Tech.
Oh,
one person has Duke.
That's
Duke
tonight.
plays tonight
Yep.
at 8 o'clock. After tomorrow night, the final tally will be available. Bowls week 1 is in my hand.
So Virginia Tech must be tomorrow.
I guess so. Yeah.
They're playing Tulane or something. I don't know. Anyways, that'll be fun to see who is the Upset Picks Challenge winner. Man, I tell you what, it's been fun to play along. I've been terrible.
VT plays Minnesota tomorrow at 7:30.
Okay.
So that is the last game.
I like it.
Where somebody has picked that game.
All right, we're going to get back into the college football playoff, but before we do, let's do this just for funsies, right? Georgia Notre Dame literally seconds away from kicking off. You, Diesel, me, Tolos. 1, 2, 3, go. Georgia Notre Dame prediction, including a score. I'll start it off. I'll go Georgia 27, Notre Dame 21.
Ooh.
I'm going the Bulldogs get the win, even with Gunnar Stockton. I don't have much faith in either one because this truly feels like a pick 'em, but I'm going to go Georgia because of the experience. Kirby Smart, their defense is still really good. They've been there. So Tolo's asking you the same. Text line 844-FAN-PHONE, 844-326-3663. If you win, you get nothing. But your Georgia Notre Dame prediction, Diesel, what do you predict happening?
I think this offense is going to sputter just a little bit without with Gunnar Stockton instead of their QB1.
Okay.
I think Notre Dame wins the game 24-18. 24-18.
How about that?
Final score.
I like it.
Notre Dame's offense is very, very good.
Okay.
And not a lot has changed about Georgia's football team except for Carson Beck and his experience not being on the field. This team is too good to lay down, too good to be blown out the way Oregon was blown out last night. But I think when you put somebody in this position that Gunnar Stockton is in, making his first start ever in the college football playoff, things go awry. You throw a pick, things get a little bit weird. So I'm going Notre Dame.
I like it. The Irish is Diesel's team Irish, rather. By the way, before kickoff, Diesel, Notre Dame is a 1-point favorite. 1-point favorite. The total is set at 45.5. So Vegas we're kind of on the same line. You and I in Vegas think it's going to be pretty low scoring. Texter from the 344 says teams on a bye go 0-4. Notre Dame wins 28-17. DB says, I'll go with K Ford. Notre Dame wins. Get in your Notre Dame, Georgia prediction right now, 844-326-3663. We have Grayson Mann of Tiger Net coming up in 10 minutes on the show. Also, 50 minutes from now, Tolo's calling you. Tolo Takeover coming up, 50 minutes. Need your best take, whether it's good, whether it's bad. If you want to sound off, if you want to rant, it's completely up to you. You want to peek in, Diesel, for the coin toss to see who wins this thing real quick?
Let's do it.
The logo, all state is heads, and on the opposite side, both schools, represented with a CFP logo, is tails. What is your call?
Why can't they just use a
heads
quarter?
Is called.
Too rich.
It is a head. You've won the toss. Deferred your choice to second. You want the ball. Which way would you like to kick? Stay here.
So Notre Dame defers after they win the toss. Georgia, Gunnar Stockton getting the football.
Make it make sense. Here's a coin, heads and tails. But the thing is, neither one of the symbols on either side of this coin are a head or a tail. Come on, use a quarter. Use a 50-cent piece if you want to.
They're too fancy for that. One more time, peek in of Marcus Freeman right before kickoff. Here is the Notre Dame coach on what it takes to win today's game.
You're going to have to generate it through schematic things, but also just through relentless effort. You're not going to replace Riley Mills with one person, but we got to replace his production with multiple people and play relentlessly, and that's what they'll do.
All right, thank you, Coach.
I can't wait, man. It's going to be fun.
Is it weird, Cole, that I will not flip a coin with anything smaller denomination than a quarter.
No, it's kind of normal.
Like
I'd
it
say.
feels
Yeah.
cheap, right?
Yeah.
Like it somehow, some way, like flipping a dime,
Yeah, it just
flipping a
feels weird.
nickel, flipping a penny doesn't feel legitimate. It's
gotta be a quarter.
Gotta have a quarter.
It's got to be a quarter. 100%.
DB says Molly is a smoke show. You are right about that. DB.
Molly who?
Molly McGrath.
Was that who was just interviewing
Yeah.
Marcus Freeman?
Yeah.
You know, my Molly is 10 a.m. to 12 noon. I don't know about y'all's Molly, but okay.
Now
Okay.
here's the real bracket. We gotta have a Molly off. We gotta have a Molly off.
I'm sorry. I told y'all I love First Take. I do. I love First Take. It's my favorite show. All right. So, Diesel, here's what's crazy. The texter brought this up.
You can add Molly Sims, Molly Shannon,
God, there are that many Mollys?
Molly Quinn, Molly. There's gonna be more. Molly Ringwald,
Molly Karam.
Molly Karam, Molly McGrath.
God, I didn't realize that. Is Aaron Andrews' middle name Molly? Aaron Molly Andrews? I mean, we can be for the sake of argument. Diesel Texter brought this up. What's interesting about the college football playoff? All of the teams with a bye are currently 0-3, but all three teams that won were Vegas favorites. So the teams that got the byes were underdogs. So make it make sense. And I know the college football committee is not Vegas, but make it make sense to me how the teams that get the byes are underdogs in their first round or their first game, which is the second round game. How are they underdogs when they're supposed to be the ones who are favored? And now
these are opening lines, or
Yeah,
is
these
that
are-
what they landed on by the time they got to kickoff?
these are opening lines. And I don't think there was much movement from what I kind of watched. I don't think there was a ton of, even for this Notre Dame game, there wasn't a ton.
I mean, Vegas. We all know that Vegas will they'll put a line in a weird place sometimes just to get money bet on it to bring it back down. So maybe that has something to do with it. Maybe they thought that if they made the underdogs, if they made the teams that were sitting on a bye, the underdogs, it would get bet in the opposite direction. Because people would say, well, of course they're a better football team. They won their conferences.
It could be. So we'll get back to this quickly, though. There is breaking news. My Twitter is blowing up. South Carolina, Diesel, tops off its impressive wide receiver class with the addition of 4-star wide receiver Donovan Murph, who just announced that South Carolina is his home. 6'2", 190, 4-star. He chose South Carolina over Ole Miss, Tennessee, Colorado, and Clemson. South Carolina just landed wide receiver Donovan Murph. How about that?
That is a big get. That is Shane Beamer is crushing it in recruiting right now. Man, this is going to be a scary program for years to come.
That's big time, man. That kid from Irmo, I'm telling you, I saw him play the second week of the season when Burns went down there. Really good player. Really good player. That's awesome.
Live update, 13:45 to play, still 0-0.
I thought when you said that, I looked over, I said, somebody scored already? They just kicked off. They run the kickoff back. Texter says, don't forget good golly, Miss Molly.
Ooh.
Who is that? Good golly, Miss Molly. Is
that just a phrase, or are you talking about somebody specific?
I don't know. I'm having to I know that's a song, right? Does the song gets counted in there? I don't know about that. I don't know. All right, back to the conversation. Sorry I got sidetracked.
It's a Little Richard song.
Little Rick with the breaking news from South Carolina. What if, Diesel, what if Notre Dame wins this game? And according to Vegas, all of the favorites win. So the teams with a bye. I'm sorry. Did Notre Dame, did I just say that wrong? Notre Dame had the bye?
Notre Dame did not have the bye.
No, Georgia had the bye.
Georgia had the bye. Notre Dame beat Indiana.
So, yeah, that's right. So what if Notre Dame wins and the team with the bye, Georgia, loses? All of a sudden they're 0-4.
Yeah.
I said on Monday, and I want to hear your thoughts on this. I said what I'm afraid of. Maybe this is like a knee-jerk reaction here, Diesel, but what I'm afraid of is us expanding the playoffs. You're still ending up with the same teams. I'm afraid of the philosophy that when you expand the playoffs, all you're doing is you're adding teams that are worse. So, like, the highest ranked teams are the best teams, right?
Mhm.
As you get, to 15, 20, 30 in the rankings, those are worse teams. My fear with the college football playoff expansion is you're adding more teams that aren't any good or aren't as good, so you're seeing blowouts. What if this becomes a trend year after year where the best teams win and there's no upsets, and we're still left with the 4 teams that would have been there when it was all said and done if we still had the 4-team playoff?
Well, we're not going backwards. We're not shrinking this thing down to 8. We're certainly not going back to 4 or 2.
Yeah.
In all likelihood, they're going to push this thing to 16.
Oh.
What I would like to see happen, Cole, before we make any changes to the format, and we started the show with me saying you can't engineer the outcome that you want. Instead of adding more teams, why don't we just move this college football playoff up to be tighter to the back of the season?
Okay.
So that your Georgia, Oregon, those type teams, the teams that got the buys, are not sitting for almost a month before they go play. How do we shrink that down to say you sit for 15 days after the season is done rather than sitting for 30 days? You sit for 2 weeks instead of 4 weeks, or 3 weeks instead of 2 weeks. You can still have bowl season after the college football playoff is done if you want to. I mean, we're going to watch it, right? We're going to talk about it. So why don't we tighten these games up? And so instead of changing everything, we just shorten the amount of time off that these conference champions have.
And again, I brought this up in the first segment. I don't know if there's I don't know who we need to ask to find this out. How sure are we that the committee, Diesel, can or cannot make changes for next year, like small changes, like conference champions and buys? I mean, are they even allowed to do that? That's a fascinating question, because like you and I, and so many other people are having conversations of what they need to do next year.
And do we trust the committee to make said changes?
I'm
not sure that they can. I'm sure there's a structure in place that they are tasked with operating inside of that structure, because I really don't want 13 people sitting in a room who, we saw the photo, not a single one of them had a beer or chicken wings while they were watching football. I don't want those people having full and total control over the playoff.
But if they would have been eating chicken wings, you'd have felt better about it.
I
would have, yeah.
Well, as long as they're spicy chicken wings. Because if you're eating something like lemon pepper and that's all you got because you're too much of a wuss to eat anything with spice on it, I don't want you picking the teams anyway.
I like both. I like
They're
a little
good.
bit of, I like one
They're good,
with
but
spice,
it can't be
one
only,
without. No. Mark Elodug says, I want Detroit to win the Super Bowl, so I don't know if I want them to get a bye or not. The only thing is they can get some players back with extra week off. And yeah, it's the same conversation we have with NFL, and you brought up the MLB earlier. I just never thought that we would be having that conversation when it comes to college football. I mean,
it's so hard to win, and everything has to be so dialed in and perfect that taking that extra week off can give you just that little bit of ring rust, and that slows you down just enough, and you don't have time necessarily to recover after we saw what happened last night with Ohio State, Oregon. When we come back, Cole, we talk to Grayson Mann of TigerNet.com about Clemson going out and getting themselves a brand new defensive coordinator, what the process was like for that, how the decision was made, where he sees it going. We'll talk to Grayson Mann next, right here on the
And
Fan
real
Up
quick,
Stage.
Diesel, I'm sorry. Texter did say this. I wanted to get this in, a public service announcement from a texter. 85 is completely shut down. Exit 46 southbound side and exit 42 northbound side. Multiple blue lights everywhere, says the texter. So you might want to stay away from 85. Apologize for interrupting there, but Grayson Mann next.
Well, those of you watching on the stream already know what's going on because there is a third and much more handsome face than ours joining us on the stream. Grayson Mann of TigerNet.com joins us right now to talk Clemson Tigers and the big changes coming on the defensive side of the football for the Clemson Tigers. Grayson, first, can you just go into your reaction when you heard that Wes Goodwin was not going to be brought back as defensive coordinator for the Clemson Tigers? Were you surprised, or is it pretty much a foregone conclusion?
Well, first of all, Diesel, you flatter me, man. You flatter me. But I hope you guys are having a happy new year. But just to the reaction, I think the writing was on the wall, especially after the Texas game, where I think Clemson's offense did enough in that matchup, especially late in the second half. And I think schematically, defensively, the flaws have been there all season. And I think it was time for a change. Obviously, nothing has been finalized from Clemson's side of it, but I think from what we reported last night at TigerNet is our understanding that Wes Goodwin has moved on and Clemson will be beginning their search for a new defensive coordinator.
Grayson, format breaker, Notre Dame, Georgia just kicked off. Your prediction today, who wins this game?
You know, I never thought Carson Beck was this game-changing quarterback. I've never really been too high on him since he's been the signal caller for the Bulldogs. I think I like Georgia in this matchup. I'm watching right now. Both defenses are flying in New Orleans. Glad that everybody's safe there. Obviously, after given the last couple of days, I think the Bulldogs win pretty convincingly today. But I think it'll be more from the ground game and just their overall physicality.
I like it. Going back to Diesel's point real quick Diesel's question rather about Wes Goodwin and the announcement that we haven't really heard but have heard from sources. From what you know, like what's going on behind the scenes? Is it contract buyout of why it kind of seems like we've heard sources announcing that this is happening, but we haven't seen an official announcement yet?
Right. It's pretty wacky, isn't it? It feels like the last time there was a big coordinator change with Brandon Streeter a couple years back, that it was pretty quick that you knew exactly what was happening. Official news was breaking, and then immediately there was a hiring point. I feel like that's sort of the process that's trying to be mirrored here, where I think Dabo in his coordinator search, he wants to have his guy ready to go. And obviously there are still a lot of factors to work out. Is the Oklahoma thing have a lot of substance to it? Is there other staff changes that Sweeney wants to make before just announcing it to the world, hey, this is what we're doing? And I think for that end, there's always a level of just, I think, continuity that they want to bring within this staff. And I think for this moving forward, I think 2025 is a very important year for this program, because I think on the offensive side, they finally have all of their kinks figured out, and everything that I think the last couple of years have presented well. Well, who's the quarterback? How does Cade Klubnik going to look? What's the Garrett Riley offense? How does Matt Luke fit into the equation? I think going into 25, they have the most clarity they've had on that side of the ball since they've probably had in a few years. So it's very important to shore up the defensive side and the issues that really plagued them in 2024, so they really can compete for a national title next year. I think they really believe that, and they really want to get this right.
Yeah, Grayson, we have to be careful and add the word allegedly to everything. Allegedly this is happening. Supposedly this is happening. What we're hearing is that this is happening. Feels like we're in some sort of a courtroom drama here. In what ways, how do you think Dabo Sweeney will sort of put his thumbprint and the way he kind of handles everything, which is loyalty over everything, rewarding guys that want to be here for a long time on everything? Obviously, do you think that that style will certainly rear its head and be applied to this decision?
I think this style that I think people should probably approach is going to be an outside search within, trying to find more of an identity from what we've seen from his last couple hires, where he's going to go get guys that are at the top of the market. Matt Luke, obviously, a big-time name coming out of Georgia, head coach at Ole Miss, lots of experience there. Garrett Riley, one of the top offensive coordinators, the top coordinator in the country from TCU, bringing them to the national championship. Certainly, I think the standard there, at least on the offensive side, is there. And I think that's a pattern that he's going to want to follow on the defensive side of the ball to really complement the rise that we've seen from that side, especially in the last few years, where this year's really been an explosion, gentlemen, where I think Klubnik and this offense have proven that they're more than capable of pulling their own weight, where it felt like the defense under Brent Venables in 21 specifically was that we're really carrying the load there. So I think it's complicated, and obviously it's like a courtroom drama. We're having to use allegedly and what we've heard. Nothing's final, so it feels like an ongoing mystery to an extent. Certainly the wackier events that I've probably presided over, but I think for my understanding, it's going to be a national search, and I think that they're going to be playing this very carefully.
Grayson, I apologize. I'm going to go to this breaking news real quick before I come back to you.
Okay.
Unfolding situation on 85 in Greenville, as we did report that it was shut down. Just for those out there that are traveling up through the upstate, try to avoid 85. Cody Alcorn has reported 5 minutes ago that an 18-wheeler was involved and pulled over and stated that he had a bomb with him. So there are multiple agencies involved. So 85 right now is toward Whitehorse Road is absolutely a bleep show, as you can imagine. So if you're traveling through the upstate right now, live here, just stay away. No further context on the nature of the call, whether it's true or not. Leo's already staging, as you can see in the picture, but a lot there, but we'll keep you updated. Grayson, sorry about that.
That's totally fine.
Just wanted to update the audience on that, as we are a sports station, but we try to bring breaking news as it unfolds. So hopefully everything will be okay in that incident unfolding on 85. Was there games in particular, Diesel and I were talking about this, Grayson, was there a game or games in particular that you saw and watched this year where you felt like if the defense would have been better, the outcome of this game would have been different?
I think I go to Louisville, South Carolina, and Texas, where I think certain adjustments, obviously Louisville going into that game, that was the week before the inaugural college football playoff rankings. Clemson was 11th in the country. And obviously the offense had its struggles that night, but you were starting to see picking up some steam in the second half. Obviously you're down by 19. I think it was 33-14 at the time. So it's a little bit of a mixed bag there. But I think South Carolina and Texas in particular in your SEC matchups, where I think adjustments throughout the game where you come out and you feel like you have a solid game plan. It felt like Wes Goodwin and this defense had Lenore Sellers in check for the most part, up 14-7 there in the fourth quarter, and you switch to a more nickel look and you take Sammy Brown off the field. I feel like that was one of his, I think that ultimately might have been one of the straws that finally broke the camel's back there, where you had a legitimate shot to beat your rival at home, to potentially clinch yourself a top 4 seed, as we saw in the unfolding weeks in the college football playoff landscape. That might have been, plus an ACC championship, enough to maybe host a playoff game in Atlanta, maybe host a playoff game in New Orleans. We don't know. There's a lot of obviously circumstances that surround that. And then you look at the Texas game where you give up almost 6 yards of carry. You give up 6 yards of carry, where you just saw Arizona State limit them to 2. So triple the amount of yardage that you're getting on the ground ultimately costs you a shot, where I felt like Clemson, once they settled in, competed for a large part of that game. Klubnik played one of the better games of this season. So I think too many times there, it was the same flaw coming at Clemson, especially on the ground, and it cost them maybe a shot at a deep run or maybe a shot at better seeding early on in the year.
Grayson Mann of TigerNet.com joining us here on the Fan Upstate. Do you think Dabo will be willing to hire a pro portal type of guy for this defensive coordinator role, and kind of put your prediction pants on here for a second and look a year in the future, 2 years into the future? How willing do you believe Dabo might be to let that pro portal mindset of some hire maybe change him? Because we did see Clemson dip into the portal just a little bit this offseason.
Right, and this was a unique year where they had needs. And I think Sweeney, obviously he's talked about, hey, we go into the portal all the time to get guys like Paul Tyson. I don't necessarily count that for sure. But going into the portal this year to get Tristan Smith and Will Helt from Purdue, I think saw a little bit of a shift in philosophy there, where they identified needs. They needed somebody that could play competently aside TJ Parker on that defensive line. They go get the top edge rusher in the portal. They see a position in Phil Maffa this year. I think it was a great lesson for them, where you see Phil Maffa continue to deteriorate and you don't really trust the depth behind you. Well, I think they've seen and identified they have some pretty good talent at the wide receiver spot, and now they can get some depth to add that with Tristan Smith. So I think there is a shift, and I think that it's more of what people have said. I'll see it when I believe it with Dabo in the portal. I think this was the offseason, or at least the early steps of it, where we've begun to see that from him and this staff. So I don't necessarily know if hiring the guy is going to be solely focused on the portal, but I could definitely see a more pro philosophy, as you alluded to, Diesel, someone coming in and just further inching on, hey, this is something we need to attack, and someone who understands what he has in defense, especially if they go get somebody from a different conference that is bringing in that talent on a consistent basis. maybe there's that extra edge that only can serve this program in a positive way.
Grayson, there was a lot of buzz when Cade Klubnik announced a couple of days ago that he was returning. I don't know why so many people were surprised by that, but I think it was expected. Tell me if you disagree with that or push back, but obviously him coming back has to be the first piece in my mind in order for Clemson to get over that hump and get back to a national championship.
Right. And what an amazing thing a year can do for just in terms of the opinion on a player in the fan base, where I think a central question was answered in 2024 about what Cade Klubnik can be at Clemson and what his legacy will be for years to come as one of the quarterbacks that led Clemson back to the promised land of the CFP. And so I think I expected him to return, but there was that thought in the back of my mind, who's going to be in his ear? Who's going to tell him, hey, this isn't a really strong quarterback class. You could maybe bump up to a round 2 grade. Who knows what people are telling him. But this is a Clemson guy through and through, someone that wanted to see it to the end. And I think for Klubnik, I think the reason you're seeing that excitement is because of how he performed and maybe recognizing that talent. They say, hey, maybe he decides to take his talents elsewhere. Maybe he wants to go to the NFL. I think him returning, it excites people for what this team could become in 2025, given where they ended up to end the season. It wasn't the Gator Bowl. It wasn't the Cheez-It Bowl, whatever food bowl that they're going to end up in. It was the college football playoff. And I think this group and this fan base believes behind Klubnik, they can go further next year.
Grayson, we'd be remiss if we didn't spend at least one or two questions on the hot start that Brad Brownell's team has had on the hardwood. After losing 2 straight to Memphis and South Carolina, they've won 2 straight against Wake Forest and Stanford. Should have at least 2 more winnable games in front of them with Cal and Louisville before it starts to get a little bit tougher facing Florida State. How important are these next 2 games to build that little bit of momentum before they started getting into the tougher part of the ACC schedule?
Right. You never know what you're going to get with a 10-day break, especially in basketball where it's so rhythm oriented. And you came out and there was a little bit of a sluggish start. I think Stanford got a little bit too many freebies on the 3-point line. But what I've started to see is a positive trend forward on some of their issues where defending threes and making threes have started to see a little bit more of a positive trend. And I think this team defensively, I think Jaden Zachary is probably one of the better on-ball defenders that I've seen in quite some time, especially at Clemson, where it feels like every instance there's an opportunity for Zachary to poke the ball away for a steal, and it just galvanizes this group. You really can see it on the court. Someone like Dylan Hunter having 6 steals yesterday is just ridiculous of a stat. He's really grown into a reliable 6th man, and I think this team has the right ingredients to have a deep run in March, but I think these next couple games are very important because this isn't going to be – these aren't games where you go, okay, if they win these 2 games against Cal and Louisville, this is going to be a true resume booster. No, this is a really consequential loss if you were able to develop some of these 2. It's what kept them out in 2022, and I think it's what left them in 2023 where they had those strong wins and they didn't stumble too many times down the stretch. So these next couple games are important in not only building momentum, but I think in a weaker ACC, each win is going to be important to not just stack, but to avoid a pretty consequential loss.
Grayson Mann, TigerNet.com. Grayson, I want to go back to the defensive coordinator conversation real quick. When you look at what Clemson could do with a hire, whether it be a guy like Tim Banks, who has a lot of traction, a really good defensive coordinator, or an internal hire with somebody like Lorenzo Ward, where do you see them going, and what have you on the beat heard as of late?
I think it's going to be a national search, Cole. I think they're going to go outside the program. I think sort of the, I guess, perception on internal hires right now may not be the best route, given how Goodwin and Streeter, those 2 internal experiments, both were deemed a failure at the end of the day. I think Sweeney has had a pretty good track record of hiring guys outside in the last couple of years, that being Matt Luke and Garrett Riley. Certainly Clemson is an objectively attractive destination to want to come to if you're a defensive coordinator perhaps on the rise, or maybe to say, hey, if I turn this product around, there's a head coaching job for me somewhere. So I think the move is certainly going to be national. Now, where and who, I think there is still a lot of factors left to play. I think certainly some candidates are still playing some football this year. It could be in the Gator Bowl tonight. It could be still in the college football playoff. I think Sweeney's trying to weigh his options and truly make the best decision to give this team a great shot in 25.
Grayson, what are you hearing from, some of the stars, the younger stars on this defense, TJ Parker, Peter Woods, guys like them, and Sammy Brown especially, the talent that is there on this roster, are they locked in no matter what, who this coordinator hire might be? Or is there a fear that there might be some attrition across the defensive side, depending on who ends up getting this job?
I think that's why it was so important, Diesel, for this team to get that retention taken care of first and foremost. I mean, you had social media announcements from Parker. You had Peter Wood saying, hey, I'm coming back. This is the place I want to be. And both of those kids, like weird saying kids, but those of those guys are going to be going to the NFL next year. And so I think a little bit of a weird mid-off-season transfer portal might disrupt some certain things that they've built here at Clemson. And I think this defensive line next year has the potential, regardless of who's going to be the coordinator, to be really special, especially when you add Will Helton into the mix. It takes a little bit more attention elsewhere, and I think it provides some good opportunities for those guys. I wouldn't be concerned about any transfers should the announcement officially be made. But I think that in this world of college football, you truly never know, but I would be pretty confident that nothing should alter depending on who's hired.
Grayson, you're the best, man. Appreciate it as always, and we'll do it again soon.
Absolutely. You guys take care. Happy New Year. God bless y'all.
You too. That's Grayson, man. TigerNet.com. Diesel, Georgia just fumbled the football inside the 10. Inside the 10-yard line, fumbled the football. Notre Dame recovers, so the Irish in business. However, a lot of real estate to gain. Scoreless, still scoreless. So, we've seen some games where teams have jumped out to an early lead. But
this is already the second best playoff game we've seen so far.
It might be, though. It might be. It might be. It might turn out to be a really good one. I hope so. A lot of stories to get to, a lot of headlines. We call them the Daily Wires on this show. We'll get to that next. to get you caught up on what's happening in the sports world. It's the Daily Wires. You didn't need to
Buzz.
buzz?
Oh,
God! It's been
Come
15
on.
days.
I was thinking the
15
Tolo
days.
takeover where I don't say anything.
Oh, my
And
gosh.
you're looking at me like,
I
what
was.
does he want me to do?
It's what, 15 days
Oh,
since we've been on the air?
Buzz, 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 buzz.
15 days and
God.
we've already forgotten. Isn't that sad? A little update, little daily buzz, as we like to call it. Yesterday in the college football playoff, if you missed it, Texas defeated Arizona State 39-31. Ohio State walloped Oregon 41-21. And Diesel, a score update into the first quarter, 0-0.
Oh, it's not good when Molly McGrath has to go interview Marcus Freeman twice.
Let's see
in
what
the first
Molly.
half.
Let's see what Marcus has to say.
We'll be fine. We got to clean up some of the pre-snap penalties. That's the stuff that's going to hurt our
Coach of the year
entire
right
team.
there, guys.
I'm okay with aggressive penalties, but the pre-snap ones where you line off sides and your false start, we got to fix that.
All right, thanks, Coach.
That's Marcus Freeman live after his first quarter of play.
Haven't we kind of gotten what we wanted really out of it's what we want out of the March Madness tournament? We want the big brands to be tested and emerge. And so far, we've seen that. We've seen the big brands tested and emerged, and ultimately, we'll get a 4-team playoff now
Blue Bloods.
with a lot of blue bloods in
Yep.
there. That's what we wanted.
Could be. Speaking of Marcus Freeman, Notre Dame coach Marcus Freeman said yesterday was a very tough day as his team met Wednesday morning after learning of the attack on Bourbon Street that killed 15 people and injured dozens more, working through the emotions after such a traumatic event, but also having to prepare for a critical game. Freeman said the first part of the meeting was to mourn and pray for our country. Freeman told ESPN's SVP on SportsCenter, but the end of the meeting was to redirect our focus to preparing for the game, said Freeman. So I'm sure, Diesel, as you're a coach or a player, being in that city, I'm sure it's tough to put that mentally behind you and go focus on the football game.
I mean, you have to be thinking the whole time, am I safe?
Yeah. I mean,
Am I safe in this locker room? Am I safe on this field? Am I safe when I go get on the bus?
It's crazy. Absolutely wild. After coming up one play short of a stunning upset, Kenny Dillingham it is, of Arizona State had no doubt that his team did belong in the college football playoff. He said, I think a lot of people were questioning that. And I don't think any person questioned if we belonged after the game. Again, it was a great performance in the second half. Those guys almost able to come back and take down Texas yesterday, but just could not get it done in double overtime. In New Jersey, the New York Jets quarterback, Diesel's favorite player in the NFL, Aaron Rodgers, will make his 241st career start on Sunday. I say that tongue-in-cheek. It could be his last, and he acknowledged that today. He says, yeah, of course, I know that, acknowledging that Sunday could be his last game in the NFL.
Oh, you don't know how
Diesel would be upset.
excited I was when I got to tweet at our guy Ryan Horvat from the show that comes on after us, because he told me before the season started that Aaron Rodgers taking a trip to Egypt before the season started, that was a nothing burger. After Aaron Rodgers said we need to eliminate all the distractions, he then continues being a distraction. And Ryan, who is an unapologetic Green Bay Packer fan and therefore an Aaron Rodgers apologist, said, let's talk about this when the Jets win the division. And you better believe
happen?
I kept the screenshot when he sent me that, and I threw it right back at him last Sunday.
Update, they did not win the division. They did not. Rodgers says in a reflective mood, he has a lot of gratitude for the last 20 years, adding that he's thankful for the many coaches and teammates he has encountered on his football journey from high school to the Jets. Sounded as if might be thinking about retirement, Diesel, after that statement, that quote, if you will.
No, Aaron, don't go.
Don't go, please. We don't want you to. And lastly, the most important Daily Wire of the day. In case you missed it, if you just tuned in, 2 Daily Wire. I'll add one more. Number 1, Tolo Takeover's next. So you Tolos get ready because it's your chance to take over next. Number 2, there is now a new way to text the show. 71307 is no more. Get rid of the number. Delete it. It's gone. You now text. Delete it. 844 fan phone 844-326-3663. One number. The promo guy has a little catchy One number does it all. you
One
know.
number to rule them all.
Yes, and the phone line,
darkness bind them.
text line, all the freaking same now. No keywords, no fan. It's easy. Easy as 1-238-44326-3663. That's the number to call and text the show.
So we're now getting more live updates. Cole and our Tolos are on top of that. We appreciate you. We're sitting here doing a live radio show. We can't keep track of everything that's going out there at every single update. Mark L says Fox Carolina is now reporting a hazardous chemical spill.
Oh, wow. Well, that's a
On
lot different than a
I-85.
bomb threat.
Very different.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thanks, Fox.
When we come back, we'll get to what I thought we were doing a minute ago and get to the Tolo takeover. Tolos, this is your chance to call in at 844-326-3663. Why don't you go ahead and call now? Get yourself on hold. Get yourself ready to go. The Tolo takeover is next. The Georgia Bulldogs are on the board. 3-0 is the current score.
Get out of hand.
We got a barn burner on our hands, man. It's getting wild down there in New Orleans. But a long field goal that barely snuck through the right upright has put the Georgia Bulldogs ahead of the Notre Dame Fighting Irish 3-0 here early in the game. Still a lot to go. We'll keep you updated as the show goes along. It's Wire to Wire. He's Cole Bryson. My name is Diesel. And this segment every Thursday at 5 o'clock is your chance to take over the airwaves. This is your Tolo Takeover.
Okay. It took me 1 hour to get $14.65 worth of gas.
My God, if I don't get that extra cup of sauce, I'm coming back in. I ain't waiting in line.
Hey, I saw some stuff on the internet that really got me going. Y'all have got me conditioned that I got to say thank you every time I call you guys. And when it's the Tolo Takeover, I kind of want to just call and be angry for a minute, but I got to start off being all cordial and say thank you for taking
You
my
don't
call.
have to.
This isn't a bad part. I mean, that's a bad part, but that's not why I'm mad as hell.
The Gamecocks are going to win in Tuscaloosa on Saturday. Y'all need to be fired.
The grocery stores, at least the ones nearest me, are completely out of frozen pizzas, except for cauliflower pizzas.
Oh.
So if you are at the grocery store and nobody will buy your cauliflower pizzas, maybe you should stop carrying.
What really ticked me off when he speaks, not because he's the Clemson football coach, but when he speaks about an ACC game, he makes it seem like it's some big ordeal. Dabo, your schedule sucks.
And I am pissed off today, okay? It took me 1 hour to get $14.65 worth of gas.
Oh, boy.
Tough shoes to fill from 2024
so
now
good.
going into 2025 here on the Tolo Takeover. But hopefully you Tolos now understand the assignment. Pick up your phones and call 844-326-3663. Sound off about anything, sports related or not. Here's your chance to be a part of the show. We hand the mic to you.
That's right.
And you just vent for a couple of seconds.
You say, oh, well, you know what? It's always Cole and Diesel talk, and they never give me a chance to talk. Oh, no, that's not true. It's not true. Right now, it's your chance. We don't interrupt. We don't laugh. Okay, we might laugh at you. We might
gotta laugh.
But here's the deal. I don't know how the internet connection is down in Somerville today, but I'm just putting an APB out for our old buddy Tom in Somerville.
I'm shocked that Tom hasn't called in and had something to say about Brett Bielema today.
But the Gamecocks lost.
Who's the biggest enemy of South Carolina right now? Is it Dabo Swinney or is it Brett Bielema? Because Brett Bielema, I think, put on a master class for how to get under Shane Beamer's skin. He was trolling Shane the entire game.
Wait, you're talking about that.
And it worked. It was magnificent. Now, it certainly woke South Carolina up because you watched it. I watched it. That game was boring as hell up until that point. And then all of a sudden, late in the third quarter, I think is when this went down, they all decided, hey, we're in a football game. Let's get fired up. Let's go play. Now, it didn't work out for South Carolina in the long run. Illinois ended up winning the football game. Cole, but we actually got a good fourth quarter. It was compelling. And it goes back to what we've said. Shane Beamer is a passionate guy. It's always sort of bubbling right there under the surface. Where was that passion in the first half? Where was the understanding that Brett Bielema is trying to troll you and you let him get you?
It's interesting because, like, you do things as a coach to, whether it be in basketball, you know how sometimes basketball coaches will get a technical foul to get their team riled up, right, to get their bench going or whatever it may be. But sometimes they don't need that. I thought it was interesting, and Madcraft and I got into an argument on Twitter about it. Not an argument, a friendly debate, rather, about the whole Bielema thing. Because Madcraft, I'm waiting on, we're waiting on your Tolo Takeover, by the way. He said, look, that came back to cost him. I said, well, they scored right after it, so I don't know that you can really say that. Did they get under his skin? Maybe so. I think it was evident that Bielema got under Beamer's skin. Beamer's reaction was awesome. I mean, it was just great. We need that in every college football game, right? He went off. I mean, he just lost his you-know-what.
I thought we were going to see a coach punch another coach.
Oh, my gosh. And a lot of people had a problem with it. I didn't. I love it.
No,
Bring more of
you
it.
got to
man.
wake your team up. Sometimes you need a Bobby Knight throwing a chair across the floor.
Yeah,
right,
that's
to
right.
wake the team up. Cole, here's my Tolo takeover. Okay. I've told you about this. Some of the Tolos are already aware of this. I had in-laws in the house for 10 days over Christmas break. 10 days. Look, I enjoy being around. They're gone, by the way. They're now south of they're south of White Horse Road. They're on their way to Atlanta.
So they can't hear you.
They can't hear me.
Good.
And they're great. They're great. Very, very generous in-laws. But 10 days is way too long to stay in somebody's house, even if you like them.
Even if you're married
get
to
along
them.
with them. Like, I can't. Well, I didn't say that. I didn't say that.
Sorry.
But like, I couldn't sit on my own couch in silence like I like to sometimes. I couldn't go number 2 in my own bathroom because I use the guest bathroom. My wife gets the master bathroom to herself. I use that way. We both have our own bathroom. I couldn't use my own toilet. And it's like, after 10 days, enough is enough.
I'll tell you what. I'll say kudos to you. 10 days with family that you don't live with? Oh,
Yeah.
my gosh.
It's like they're always around.
That's
always
a long time. You wake up in the morning, you walk downstairs, and bam, there they are. You know, I mean, that is a long, long time. I say kudos to you. I don't know if I could have lasted that long.
Yeah.
I just said, hey, yeah, I think it's time y'all go on.
I wake up, they're there. I go get something from the
Why, what's your
kitchen,
name?
they're there. I come home, I go to bed. They're not there, not in bed, but they're there at the house. And it's like, man, I'm a creature of habit. I need my own routines. I don't need other people messing up my routines.
That is I'm telling you, man, that's a stroke. 10 days. I'm glad that you didn't come in here and unleash all your anger out on me after 10 days. I'm very proud of you. All right, Tolo takeover. Let's get to the phones. That was Diesel's Tolo takeover. It's his rant, if you will. You can call in just like Diesel just sounded off. 844-FAN phone, 844-326-3663. TA wants to start things off. TA in Gaffney. What's up, TA?
Hey guys, good stuff. I thought last night that Beamer going bananas was really gonna work, but I don't think the players responded to Beamer going to bat for them and just completely going nuts. And like you say, it's comparable to a technical foul in basketball where the players just get riled up and go crazy and start just knocking down threes, or in football start hitting heads and just turning the game. I think Beamer did his part in that, and I don't think the players did their part in backing up what Beamer did for them when obviously what the coach did worked. Now that it's all over and we can look at it in hindsight, what he did, and laughing at him when Beamer couldn't get the players on the field, when he was moving his players on and off the field, Beamer had to call a timeout. Number one, I would have took that 5-yard penalty, so I have that timeout in the fourth quarter. I don't think I've heard anybody talk about that. You don't have to call a timeout when you're in that 5 yards. Sure. The timeout's worth better than 5 yards at the end of the game. So I think the players let the coach down in this situation. I'll let you guys go and talk about it, but that's my opinion. And I don't think you always have to call a timeout when the clock's running down and there's a 5-yard penalty at stake.
Thanks, TA. I like that.
Thanks, TA.
I like that a lot.
Where was the passion in the first half of that game for South Carolina?
Yeah, and to his point, like, I agree with him on a couple of things. South Carolina scored after, but after they scored, and this was what I was trying to get Madcraft to understand when we were going back and forth on Twitter last night. When they scored after, to TA's point, South Carolina kind of seemed lifeless. Like, they didn't really have a lot of mojo after that. And to his point, what he was talking about in basketball, a team usually that happens a lot when a coach goes and, I don't want to say intentionally gets attacked, but the coach knows what buttons to push. And you know what? I think South Carolina, emotions aside, I think they underachieved and underperformed when they needed to step up, when they didn't have their best players on the field, just like the discussion you and I were having in the very first segment.
Wasn't it just two players that were really – it was Kyle Kennard and Rocket Sanders.
And Nick Kimmonwari in the second half.
Nick Kimmonwari, okay.
But yeah, to your point, it was just two players. It was their best players, but it was just two players. They should still have guys step up.
Dylan Stewart still played. Lenore Sellers still played. God, I'm blanking on his name now. Tight end. Tight end still played.
Mark Yellow Duck says, I think it was Bush League what Beamer had the team do in the end zone. And again, everybody has their opinion on whether what Beamer did was right or wrong, and the substitutions, the substitution sign that Bielema gave. I get it. But at the end of the day, coaches are going to have passion and are going to stick up for their players. I don't have a problem with it. At the end of the day, I really don't have a problem with what Beamer did.
Live update for you. Now score is tied 3-3. Notre Dame has 2 sacks on Gunnar Stockton, but Gunnar Stockton just connected over the middle. Looked like to a tight end there. A little too big to be a slot receiver. Connected over the middle, and Georgia just picked up a big-time gain. Now they're out to the 38-yard line, and a Notre Dame player is down. Hopefully it's not a serious injury. Hopefully it's weird now in 2025 to say, I hope it's a real injury, right? I hope this isn't they just got a gain, so let's have somebody sit down on the field and try to ruin and slow
God,
down.
that happens all the time.
All the time.
Before I get to a couple of texts, I did want to bring this breaking news back to the forefront in case you missed it earlier today. 4-star wide receiver Donovan Murph has committed to South Carolina. He told On 3 Recruits today, 6'2", 190-pound wide receiver from Irmo, chose South Carolina over Ole Miss, Tennessee, Colorado, and Clemson. So Donovan Murph is calling South Carolina home. Not a bad start for Shane Beamer. He's been fantastic. And also, Spartanburg J got in on the conversation on the text line. The new text line, by the way, 844-326-3663. He says, my Tolo takeover is, I'm so happy Clemson and Dabo wasted zero time dismissing the DC. Not sure who is on the list to replace him, but I trust Dabo understands what needs to be done. Spartanburg J, you're right. We talked about that earlier in the show, as well as with Grayson Mann of Tiger Net. If you missed that, you can go back and find that interview on the Odyssey app, AUDACY, the rewind feature. Also, Diesel, Trooper Mitchell Ridgway on Twitter at SCHP Troop 3. He is a highway patrolman relations officer for Spartanburg, Greenville, Anderson, Pickens, and Oconee. He did confirm that I-85 northbound and southbound in Greenville is closed due to an incident. So 85, you might want to stay away.
Yeah, I wonder how they're going to get cars off of this road. I mean, I've been on the highway when there has been a total shutdown to the point where they had to start backing cars up to take an exit that they had already gone past. I'm feeling for those of you who are sitting in this traffic, man. And there's always that one guy who said, you know what? I'm going to wait till I get to my exit before I stop and get gas, sitting on a quarter of a tank, sweating it a little bit right now.
I do that every day. I do it every day.
Man, it sucks for you. I don't know how they're going to get cars off of the highway and get them off to a side street and hopefully along their way. But that's tough, man. When I-85, and it's the same for I-85 through Atlanta, right? When the main artery that goes right through this area gets clogged up, there is nowhere to go. And I've only been saying it for years. It's time we build some loops to get around this city.
So what does Cole do at 7 o'clock when the show's over? I guess I'm staying at the radio station, and I don't know.
You got a blanket and a sleeping bag around?
I don't know where to go. Tolo Steve on the text line says, Happy New Year, fellas. Good to hear from you, Tolo Steve. You want to go to the phone lines? We have 3 Tolos, Diesel.
Let's do this. Let's go to Madcraft first, because God, all of a sudden the phone lines are just blowing up. It's Madcraft's chance to say his piece. What do you got for us?
Yeah, I'm going to take over. Listen, I am now the commissioner of college football, and gone are the days of 12 most deserving. That's gone. We're going to do 12 best, because if we don't do 12 best, we're not actually crowning a national champion.
Yeah, but Tennessee was a 12 best, and they got their ass kicked.
It doesn't matter.
Oregon was the 12 best, and they got their ass kicked.
Well, that's fine. If they were one of the 12 best, then they should have been in there. It's
Well, were they
fine.
really one of the 12 best if they both got their ass kicked?
Listen, Diesel. Diesel. You gonna be serious with me right now?
Go ahead.
You gonna sit here and act like these playoffs are good?
This game's good.
Have you not? Did you not watch any of the 4-team playoffs in the years past when it was the 4 best teams and the teams got their ass kicked in those playoffs all the time? Are you gonna look back at this with rose-colored glasses and tell me that every game of the 4-team playoff era was this barn burner of a football game, can't miss television? No,
absolutely not. But that was only a 14 playoff. So listen, let me tell you here. Let me give you my fix, and then I'll get off the phone and let y'all talk about it. Now, granted, this is a work in progress. I understand that there's loopholes, there's problems that you can pick out. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So here's what we're gonna do. Kind of like the BCS, where you have a number that's assigned kind of to your team, and then you're ranked based off of that number. So, for example, Oregon was number 1. They would have like a 93.8, for example. Now, that number is coming up from a metric of 5 different metrics that make up that number, and they're all weighted differently, and that benefits the conferences differently. That way, we can do something that JD's talked about. He says, well, the conferences aren't fair, then they'll never be fair. Well, we can actually adjust that by making this fair in this. So the first two is good wins and bad losses. Now, the good wins is great for the SEC because they're all ranked all the time, so they get those all the time. Bad losses, I want to stipulate, a bad loss is not going on the road, losing by 5 points to Syracuse. It is being at home and barely scoring 3 points against 6-6 Oklahoma. That's bad loss, right? So there you got that. Then we got the third one is offensive and defensive efficiency ranked together, like together as one. So, for example, Miami's defense, everybody was hating on it, but Miami's offense was number 1. If they were together, combined, where would they have been? So number 4 is straight win percentage. The BCS was all about how many losses you had. This is going to be about how many wins you have. Now, we've gone are the days of there's no buys or anything, but there's not even conference championship bids. However, you still have an incentive to win your conference championship game because you can get that extra win because it increases your win percentage. And
Matt
then the
Craft,
very
is
last
all of
one-
this designed to get Miami in the 12-team playoff?
No, this has nothing to do with Miami. This has nothing to do with Miami.
All right, you have one last point before we move on. We've got 3 other callers.
Yeah. I got the very final metric is the smallest one. It's weighted the smallest. For that reason, it's strength of schedule.
Okay.
I get it.
And then
you make a good point there. Strength of schedule is not always the argument that people make it out to be. It's a metric. It cannot be the end-all, be-all metric. Appreciate the call there, Madcraft. Good stuff.
Good stuff. I like it, Madcraft. I was just messing with you, by the way, with the music. All right. Dewey's up next. You ready for this? Oh, boy, this could
The
be
first
good.
Dewey of 2025.
Oh, Dewey, it's all you, man.
Yes. First of all, I need to express my displeasure about the Gamecocks losing to Illinois. There's no excuse for that. But at the same time, when you opt out and your best players opt out, that sort of thing's going to happen. It's disgraceful, and those players should be disciplined. Secondly, the bowl season sucks, and the playoffs suck. Everyone get blown out. The games aren't worth watching. The travesty of this committee should be ashamed of themselves. They should go to an NFL style playoff where there's no NFL committee. It's the best 7 teams in the NFL go to the playoffs, and that's it. No one's judging Kansas City, and no one's judging Detroit. They're going to go to the playoffs because they earned it, and that's it. No committee is choosing them.
We have a thirdly.
And I need to comment on something Tom from Somerville said.
Okay.
And Tom's my friend, but I agree with him and I disagree with him. I agree with him because I don't know if I really agree with him or not, but he's halfway right that the NIL crap brought in is the reason why Gamecocks went 9-3. But at the same time, Spencer Rattler was NIL too, and they were crap during his 2 years. So it goes both ways.
Okay.
Thanks, Dewey.
What did he just say to me?
God, I don't know. That was great.
Brother Contreras getting a laugh out of Dewey.
Oh boy.
I agree with him. I disagree with him. I
don't
don't know
if
that I agree with him.
I don't know.
Oh,
Nobody
my
knows.
God.
We got time for one more.
Yep, we got time for Delvin on the phone. Tolo Delvin, what's up, brother?
I'm doing good. First of all, that was the most annoying 5 minutes of my life right there, man.
You talking about Dewey or Madcraft?
Just now, who y'all talking
Dewey,
to?
yeah, Dewey.
Yeah. Anyway, hey, you talking about a name? You talking about Tim Banks? How about Jim Leonard? I'm hearing that name too.
Oh, for Clemson's defense?
Yeah.
It's good. It's a good question. I don't know. I just think if you can get Tim Banks, you got to go get him. Like that's probably to me, that's one of the best options out there if you're Clemson.
I think Jim Leonard's a good hire too.
Yeah. I don't push back, but can Clemson get either one of those? That's the question. I don't know.
I think they can. If you can get a Garrett Riley and Matt Luke, I think Dabo can get one of those guys.
Hey, Delvin, how'd you do in the Upset Picks Challenge using one word to describe how you did?
Sup?
We're going to have the final rankings as Dan B let us know. There's still one more game to be played tomorrow night that has an active pick. So we can't give you the final results until Monday. But you're right, Delvin. I don't think there's anything that's going to change the suck that you're in based on this year's picks.
Yeah, well, I've got to do better. That's one of my New Year goals. Do better next year. Next year.
You know what?
This year.
I know you're going to be here, Delvin, and I believe in you. So
We'll
appreciate you being a long-time caller.
That's right. So that's the best New Year's resolution ever. Be better in my Upset Picks Challenge.
Hey, we need small, achievable goals, right? You don't need to change your entire personality. You just need to change a little thing. You know what? You're always the person who has Tic Tacs in his pocket.
Yeah,
that's okay. That's a thing to be like. How many people have bad breath? You can always be the one there to step in and lend a helping hand.
Tolo Steve says, sounds like Dewey doesn't know who he agrees with. Spartanburg Jace, excuse me. Spartanburg Jace says, guys, regional super conferences would solve everything without Madcraft's new BCS. Regular season would matter. All conferences would be more equal in both quality teams and money. Why can't y'all see this?
Well, I just asked, and who was it that sent this in? Sorry,
Spartanburg J.
Spartanburg J. I can't see the text line right now as we've just changed over our system. I don't have access to that little thing yet. And I think Spartanburg J and I have gone back and forth with each other on this on Twitter before. How are you going to force teams to be in certain conferences? How are you going to adjust the conferences or divisions based on relative strength every year? I mean, look at the NFC South, awful this year. Couldn't you say, all right, well, if the NFC South has been this bad, we're going to bring in a good team to make the NFC South watchable, and then we're going to cycle out one of the bad teams. And for a division that's really, really tough, we're going to cycle one of those bad teams in there to keep the relative strength of schedule relatively equal.
No, I'm with you. It's easy to give a fix and say, hey, this is the ultimate fix. However, it's easier said than done, right?
There's a lot of contracts, a lot of money, a lot of hurt feelings, and a lot of lawsuits it's going to take to get to that place.
Notre Dame, Georgia update on the other side. Also get back into the South Carolina Gamecock conversation, put a small bow on the Gamecock season. What went wrong for South Carolina against I just had a brain fart. Illinois, the Fighting Illini. I could think of their mascot, but not the team name, which is weird because, I'm terrible with mascot. Diesel's the mascot guy. What went wrong for the Gamecocks against Illinois yesterday? We'll get into that. Your thoughts next. So I know this is a sports show, and we're going to get back to sports, but trying to keep you Tolos updated on everything that's going on out there in the upstate. Nick Sorter on Twitter, who is, let's see, he's on Fox News, Newsmax, Timcast, etc. He has reported on Twitter that I-85 in Greenville County is closed in both directions due to a bomb threat involving an 18-wheeler. He got this from Intel Point Alert. Police are asking citizens to avoid the area for coming hours. It was first reported around 4:10 p.m. Diesel. We also got a report that there was a chemical spill. We're trying to find out if that was the same incident or a different incident. I've got an email chain going with our sister station across the hall, 98.9 News Talk WRD, with Rob Jones, trying to keep up to date on this situation, rather, is the words I was looking for. So we'll keep you updated. If you're out and about, stay away from the 85 area, as it seems as if there's some trouble over that way, whether it's a chemical spill. One of our Tolos on the stream, Diesel, said the chemical spill, let me see if I can find this, said the chemical spill was different than the bomb threat. So much going on. Hopefully it's nothing. But then again, 85 seems to be a complete lockdown right now. If you have to go that way, I understand it. But if you can somehow avoid it, do so. I have to go home on 85 Diesel, and I don't know.
Well, if I were you, and this is great, we're giving great directions live here on the show.
Yeah.
I'd go down Woodruff Road, hop on 14, get as far up I-85 as you can, find out where they open it back up.
Yeah.
And see if you can get north of that. You know, you could take like Spartanburg Highway.
Yeah,
all the way up and stay off of, and so you basically be paralleling I-85.
You could go that way. You could go from here. You could go over through like
up to like Wade,
head toward North Greenville and go that way. So many different ways, but Tolos, just stay safe. Try to avoid 85 if you can, because there is just a lot going on out there, and that's the last place you want to be on a Thursday evening to celebrate the new year, stuck like Chuck on 85. All right, Notre Dame, Georgia update. What are we looking at here? 3rd and 11. Notre Dame has the ball, Diesel. They're threatening. It is tied 3-3. Is it just me? Is this game going by pretty fast? Already 48 seconds to go in the first half.
Yeah, it's wow. If you had told me there was 48 seconds to go in the first quarter, I would believe you. You know, because it feels like this game more like going in a creeping pace of play. But yeah, it's slow. This is not a particularly exciting football game.
It's 3-3. Again, Notre Dame has the ball. 4th and 11 now. They're trotting out their kicker to make it a 6-3 game, but this is going to be a pretty long field goal here. And I'll tell you what, like I told you this before the game started in the 3 o'clock hour, I had no idea what was going to happen this game. I didn't feel confident either way. You picked Notre Dame. I picked Georgia. But I picked them up in the 20s, high 20s, I believe.
Yeah, I think I had 24-18. You had, I think, 27.
Yeah, I wrote
24
it down.
or 27-21.
I had it 27-21. You had it 24-18. They'll be lucky to sniff 20.
They'll be lucky for both of them to combine for 20.
I'm telling you, I should have took the under in this game.
It's wild, you know. Like Texas ultimately went on to win that game, but for Bert Auburn,
oh my God,
a guy that's a lights out kicker to miss 2 in a row.
I don't like his name because I
sounds like burnt orange.
I had the under in Texas on a parlay, and Mr. Auburn, Mr. freaking Auburn, He cost me that. He cost me that parlay. Oh. The parlay didn't hit.
Now is it under in regulation or under?
Yeah. No, it was a total game, but for the whole game. However,
that's not fair. You should get some protection for that.
I know you should. Insurance.
Yeah.
But I did not, so I lost that parlay. But it's a lot of fun. These college football playoffs, look, I know sometimes they haven't been the most riveting, but here we go, Diesel. Let's call this thing up. Notre Dame looking for a field goal.
Notre Dame looking to kick from their 37-ish yard line, making it a 47-yard kick. He had the leg right down the middle, barely got it over the middle upright, but he has put the ball through. So now Notre Dame leads 6-3 with 38 seconds to play in the first half.
On cue, we were going to talk Gamecocks in this segment. And on cue, just like that, maybe the Tolo takeover was at 5, maybe because, we're in Spartanburg, Greenville. the waves, the internet takes a long time to get
Well,
down to Somerville.
No, I figured out what it is Tom's house in his neighborhood. They don't observe daylight savings time.
Oh,
So for him, it's still 4:35.
4:35. He's early then.
Yeah, he's early.
Tom in Somerville wants to weigh in. Tom, good to hear from you. Hate what happened to your Gamecocks. We thought you would be in mourning. What's up, man?
Hey, it's okay because you know what? We beat Clemson in the regular season, and that's what matters. You know, hey, and it's a frustrating loss because that game on Saturday or whatever day it was on, that game was unlike anything we saw during the winning streak. It was frustrating, and you could tell early on that they just was not meant to be for the Gamecocks again in the bowl game. And as frustrating as that loss was, and as childish, and I'll say that, Shane Beamer acted like a child. Okay, that was probably more frustrating than the actual loss, was the way that he was acting. It just drove a nerve. I could say a cuss word right now, but I'm not going to.
How about that? We love it. We non-South Carolina fans love Shane Beamer getting angry, and a Gamecock fan hates it.
I liked it, Tom.
Well, I'm okay with the coach getting mad. I like to see emotion, but it felt like it was over the top from the start. I mean, it's one thing if it was, a bad call here and there, and I get being mad about the whole, Illinois subbing players late, but the problem is it's been like that from the start. So to act like that, I don't know. And then to call out the opposing coach, like, dude, just go win the football game.
Hey,
if you
Tom.
win the football game, nothing else matters.
Little bit of update. Gunnar Stockton just fumbled the football inside his own 20. Or I'm sorry, inside his own 30. Notre Dame falls on it. Now with 33 seconds to go, up 3, Notre Dame has the football back. Sorry, Tom, I just wanted to get that out there.
So, Tom, before you move on from this incident, what if Brett Bielema was your head coach? Pretend that Brett Bielema was the South Carolina head coach, and he did exactly what he did just for your team. What would your reaction have been to that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, to be honest with you. I'll say this. We saw what he did as an SEC head coach, and I'm glad he ain't my head coach. But, it's part of it is gamesmanship, I guess. I mean, and I'll say this, too. What he was talking about made sense. I don't really understand why Beamer let it get to him so much. That's just the thing that just drove me up a tree with Shane Beamer during the bowl game.
Yeah.
Like, the play calling did not seem very good. They didn't really let Sellers just go run the football. Like, it just seemed like the offensive game plan was just too tentative and too conservative.
Seemed like a spring game.
Does that give you any pause for concern on the OC hire of Mike Shula?
No, I don't think so. I don't think we need to really go down that road yet. But it just seemed like the overall offensive game plan was not what worked all year long. And I don't know. It's a one game thing. I get it, but
yeah,
I don't know. It just seemed like things weren't clicking from the start.
Yeah.
Yep.
Thanks for the call, Tom.
Yeah, and it's hard, when you're changing OCs going into a bowl game like that. You're even if it's a guy that's been on staff, just things are different, and that little bit of different. You hear coaches talk about rhythm, about consistency all the time, and how crucial that is. So just having that little bit of change, not having Dowell Loggins in the room, having Mike Shula be a part of this thing now.
Why? What's your name?
Be in control of this thing offensively. That certainly changes how you do everything.
It does. And
during game week.
I know some people think it's just one player. For an offensive coordinator, not to be able to rely on Rocket Sanders to get the offense going like he has in years past, it's big. It's big. All right, a couple more calls real quick. Rick and Greer. I mean, they're late to the Tolo takeover. I mean, what are we doing here, guys?
Yeah.
But It's okay.
You
Rick and
guys need
Greer.
you need to work on your punctuality, all of you. Rick, where you been?
I heard Tom.
Why, what's the
He is being very nice, and I like that version of Tom. Okay, he's doing good.
I think it's called
sounds
happy.
good.
I think what it is happy.
Yeah,
Rick.
but I'm surprised with Carolina losing.
How can he be happy when South Carolina loses?
That's what I'm wondering.
Well, you heard him say it. South Carolina beat Clemson, and outside of that, he doesn't have anything else going
That's right.
on.
That's all that matters, Rick.
I was trying to catch him. I never got my Christmas card, and I cried about it for a whole day.
Tom.
I did. I cried like a big baby. I'm still crying.
Tom, where's the Christmas card go? You said you had one ready to go. All you needed was the address.
He's all talk.
Tom, all talk. Yeah, where you
all
at,
talk, Tom? That's what it is. Rick,
okay.
anything else for us?
I just wanted to take over for a few seconds. I'm so mad about them damn Panthers. I just don't. I don't even like myself no more.
Oh,
but I told you the
to
other day, man. If you're getting upset about the Panthers, I mean, come on.
They're not doing anything about it, okay? Nothing.
Well, it's too late to do anything about it this year.
There's going to be a quarterback on the market. Get a quarterback, okay, please. He's not for us, okay, please.
Thanks, Rick. All right, you got time for Harold in Greenville before we run to a break. What's up, Harold?
This y'all, I've been sitting here getting the whole scoop from both of you. Diesel, by the way, welcome back. I miss you, brother.
Thank you, Harold.
Listen, on the bowl game, I give the first award, bonehead award, to Shane Beamer. Listen, anytime you got a chance to put points on the board, you take it. That fake field goal, it didn't work. It shouldn't have been behind 1 point. You're behind 4, and that paid off, and that came to bite your ass in the end of the game, But the biggest thing was Lenore Sellers. Listen, he hadn't had a game like this since Oklahoma. They didn't have but one good drive in that game, by the way, of the defense. They put that game up. But I don't know what the cause was. He had 2 or 3 times he was rolling out, and I heard Tommy Suggs and
Todd Ellis
and what's his name? I don't want to call him. Anyway, he could run for the first down. And did they have some kind of want to pass it? And his passes were so way off. They had the plays there, but they were too high. And that one pass at the end of the game, 4th down on the 6-yard line, and he couldn't hit that receiver wide open, just like he missed that receiver in Alabama game for 2-point conversion. He threw it too high. This one was too low. So I don't know what, but Norris Sellers only had 18 yards rushing, guys, in that game. And that's what gets me. I don't know what was up, but his passing was off. But Shane Beamer, when you got points, you got to take them. I'd have been a lot more happier on that last possession, been on the 6-yard line, been down 1 point and stood in 4. And that he kicked the field goal. I don't know what would happen after that, but
yeah, Harold, I think they were playing to not get Lenora Sellers hurt. They weren't letting him run. He wasn't throwing. He wasn't crisp throwing the ball.
I thought too. Something had to be up. I don't know what was up, and that's his. Gosh, he's got all season to heal up. He did get hurt, but it was so late in the game, But he didn't look like the same quarterback, guys, that I've listened to all of the last 6 games of the year. But it had nothing to do with Kennard being out or Rocket Sanders. They had a good game plan. They had receivers open. He dismissed them. So I guess it's just maybe Diesel, it's too much time. Just rust. You had rust on you. But anyway.
Thanks, Harold.
Listen, they got to do something about this substitution rule coming in, waiting 10 seconds. They got to put some kind of time limit on to stop the clock. I don't care if it's 7 or 8 seconds. That's the only thing going to stop this.
I'm with you.
Appreciate
Absolutely.
the call, Harold. Good stuff there. And all of a sudden, man, look at that. The Tolo takeover just came back out of nowhere, just
And
like a rebound.
Real quick, a little more breaking news today because it seems like today's been full of breaking news. Alabama true freshman wide receiver Amari Jefferson, who South Carolina was very high on and recruited him, has entered the transfer portal.
Interesting.
Probably their best up-and-coming receiver at Bama in the portal. How about that?
That's not going to sit well with the Alabama faithful who are already hopping mad at Kalen
It should be.
DeBoer.
It should be.
When we come back, Cole, the Pro Bowl selections are out. Believe it or not, a Carolina Panther is going to the Pro Bowl, but not the one you think it might be. That's all coming up next on the Fan Upstate. Cole, it's hard to put into words just how bad the NFC South is. So
You
here's
just
a great
did.
way to do it.
Bad.
4 teams. 4 teams have more Pro Bowl selections than do the entire NFC South combined.
Is that good?
No.
Oh, okay.
No. That's not good. So Pro Bowl selections are out there. Chiefs got 6 players on the Pro Bowl team. The Ravens had 9 selected, 7 from the Lions, and 6 from the Vikings. And you're saying, well, those are good football teams. They have stars. They deserve to play in the Pro Bowl, right?
Yeah.
Well, the NFC South combined, Cole, has just 5 players making the Pro Bowl. And from the Carolina Panthers, who would you guess is the player that made the Pro Bowl? It's hard to find one, honestly.
Yeah,
Right?
Let me guess. One player?
Yeah, one.
I'm going to guess.
Maybe Chuba?
Chuba Hubbard.
No, it's not Chuba.
Waterboy.
No, it's not him either.
Athletic trainer.
He was good, though.
No, they had a really good athletic trainer.
Did they?
I
Did they?
think
Because
so.
there was a lot of injuries.
Punter. They have a good punter.
It was J.C. Horn.
Oh,
J.C. Horn, the lone Carolina Panther, selected to the Pro Bowl. Now, David Newton did a great little write-up on J.C. Horn and why he was selected to the Pro Bowl and why he deserved to be selected to the Pro Bowl, in which he says that J.C. Horn has the second best catch allowed percentage after being targeted at least 70 times this season.
That's pretty good.
So I don't know who it was now who had the better percentage than him, but he played lights out this year. JC played lights out this year, and he played in all but one game, the last week's game against the Buccaneers. And so now we can clearly point to J.C. Horn not being in the game as the reason why the Carolina Panthers got their doors blown off by the Buccaneers. But the Falcons got in right guard Chris Lindstrom and special teamer Kadero Hodge. The Bucs are putting left tackle Tristan Wirfs and defensive tackle Vita Vea in the Pro Bowl. Sorry to the Saints, you get nada.
You can't spell Pro Bowl without Panthers, right? No, I'm just kidding. That's a lie. Nobody ever said that. That's not true. All right, what is true though?
That works.
P, you get the P.
Yeah.
No A.
No, yeah,
no N.
No N. No T.
No T. H.
No H.
E. No. R.
No.
Yeah, you get R. P and R.
S.
No, you get 2.
You can totally, yeah.
You get 2 letters. We really did well on that. All right. Speaking of doing well, Diesel, I love what Demetrius Knight said after the South Carolina game compared to what Miami's Cam Ward did not do in the second half. Want to get to that audio and continue that conversation next. It is halftime at the moment between Georgia and Notre Dame, a riveting first half, Diesel, where the scoreboard is now broken because there were so many points scored. I'm kidding. That's a joke. That's not true. It's been a defensive battle as Notre Dame leads 6-3 over Georgia at the half. He's Diesel. I'm Cole Bryson. This is Wire to Wire on the Fan Upstate. And I wanted to get back to the Cam Ward Miami discussion because I talked about it, Diesel, a lot on Monday. You weren't here on Monday, so I want to revisit that. And you brought up Cam Scatabo, audio from him earlier, which I loved. But how about Demetrius Knight from South Carolina, who also was a big part of the South Carolina team in 2024, right, and their success. He played in the bowl game, and he valued the bowl game. Obviously, everybody has a different story. Everybody has a different upbringing. But here is what Demetrius Knight said after the game about why he chose to play in the Gamecocks bowl game.
Just to finish the right way. Finish what you started. I have kids, and I didn't want my daughter and my son to be like, why didn't you play in the last game? And I'm like, I didn't feel like it, or I felt like I would get injured. I don't want to give them an excuse, if they feel like they got to finish homework. Oh, I felt tired. I didn't feel like doing it. You did it, Illinois, and then I got to live with that. But no, I want to show them how to, finish what you start. When you start it, finish it. And that's a good quality in a person.
Finish what you started. I mean, how can you not love that? I mean, that you did that times 10.
Again, we need to raise up these voices and talk about these guys more often. And instead of making it about the players that opted out, we need to make it about the players that opted in. Look, as far as I know, Cole, the bowl games actually go on the team's resume over the course of the season, right? Like
it's on the record,
It's on the record. The game counts. I can't fathom somebody saying, you know what? I've already got what I want to get here. I don't care if we lose. I'm okay with my team losing. I'm okay with having my resume blemished a little bit by not playing in this game.
Well,
I'm okay with not being involved. I'm okay with putting it off on somebody else's hands to make me look good or look bad. Look, I understand that these guys going forward are making a decision to protect themselves going into the NFL. Yeah. And teams don't look at your record. The Detroit Lions, as they're going to look to add players to the team for next year, they're not going back and looking at the record that your team had in college. They're going back to look at your individual accomplishments. But to me, this is a red flag. This is a guy who isn't willing to do everything it takes to win. He's willing to do enough so that he gets his own numbers, so that he can now go and be a pain in the ass in contract negotiations. See, coach, I got my 1,000 yards this season. I got what I need to get. I'm done. Like, if you're not going to play the whole game, and help me out, which South Carolina player was it
that was
opted out in the second half?
Oh, Nicky Manwari.
Yep. If you're not going to play the whole game, don't play it at all.
That's what I said Monday.
Just don't play it all.
I said the same thing Monday.
I don't want you on the team. I don't want you at the game.
Yep.
If you're not there to play, I do not want you at the game, because that then becomes infectious.
It's a distraction.
Your teammates who have looked up to you all season long now look at you and say, well, Nick's not playing. Why should I play hard? Right? There's our leader. There's one of our defensive leaders not playing. That sends a bad message to the team.
Well, that's the argument me and Madcraft had on Monday. Is I said the same thing. I said, if you're not going to play the whole game, don't play at all. He said, no, that's the dumbest thing in the world. Look, playing a half's better than playing nothing. I said, no, it's not. It's not about what you're giving to the team. It's about the principle. And I thought Demetrius Knight absolutely hit the nail on the head, summed it up perfectly. What it all comes down to is it's a society that we live in that has become more and more of a me over we society. What's happened to the players that when a bowl game happens, and look, I'll have that conversation. Bowl games are just about meaningless. I get that. However, to your point, they're still on your record. They're still on your resume, and you still go out there and play the game. Your teammates are required to put in the work and the effort and the practice, and the coaches are required to do the same. So if you have a career in the NFL, that's great. That's fantastic. Whatever. If I'm a player, and I said this the other day, Diesel, when you weren't here, my biggest issue with all of this when it comes to Cam Ward and other players, even Nick Emmanwori, my biggest problem is that if I'm a teammate and I'm on the field in the second half and I'm watching and I'm having to grit and put all my effort in, and I'm watching my teammates sit on the sideline and not help and not contribute, I said on Monday, I don't want anything to do with them.
How many Miami players and coaches do you think walked up to Cam Ward and said, "Hey, Cam, we really need you back out there. We really need you back. Look, we've fallen apart now that you've quit on the team. We need you back out there." He's like, "Nah, coach. Nah, coach, I'm not going back in.
I'm good.
Nah, I'm good.
I'll pass.
I already set you up. I'm good. I'm done." Look, what do they want us to do? What do these players expect fans to do? Fawn all over themselves? Thank you so much, Cam Ward, for a half of football. Well, thank you so much for setting us up with a 3-point lead in a bowl game and then quitting on us. Stop. At what point do you say, get your ass back in the game? You owe the fans. The fans, by the way, who are a big part of putting money into your NIL collective that you are getting paid from. Fans are paying you to play. They're not paying you to stand there in a uniform on the sideline and say, "No, coach, I don't want to go in. I'm done. I've given everything I can give to this team." Are you hurt? No, I just don't feel like it. Because that's all it comes down to. I just don't feel like it. But Cam Ward is already rich. He's made his NIL money, both at Washington State and Miami. Most of these players have big-time insurance policies on them, especially the ones that are expected to go in the first round in the NFL. They're getting insurance policies. So if you play, you get paid. If you get hurt, you still get paid. I don't understand the thought process. I mean, like, we've asked the question, and this is something that we can't know for another 20 years or so until these players start going into their reunions, right? 10 years down the line, 20 years down the line, bring all the players back to celebrate that great 2024 season. Or if you're, for whatever team, you had a great season. Who's going to be in the room for these things?
Yeah.
Like, is it going to be like that final episode of The Fresh Prince where Will is standing in the big empty living room of the mansion looking around like, who's even here?
Yeah,
Like,
I've been very vocal. I don't like it. I just think it says a lot about your character. And I know Madcraft and anybody else who's pro player. And we had a lot of good calls on Monday about it. I'm not saying that it's only the players that are doing this. I just don't like it because if I were in that game as a teammate and I were out there trying to win, I wouldn't be happy with a guy standing on the sideline who wasn't contributing. Now, speaking of standing on the sideline and not contributing, it might be time for Georgia to contribute. Notre Dame just took the opening kickoff back for a touchdown.
Ooh.
It is now 20-3. Notre Dame is up on Georgia 20-3.
Is Georgia about to get routed in the Sugar Bowl? Going back and forth with Madcraft on this right now on the stream. Madcraft says, y'all assume that the team is mad at him. It says, y'all assuming that the team is mad at him is reaching. No one from Miami has said anything negative. Well, Madcraft, you're also assuming that because nobody has said anything negative that nobody's mad at him.
Yeah, true.
So if you want to say we're assuming, you're assuming too. You're assuming that nobody's mad at him, that nobody else on that team cares if they win or lose. Like, what are we doing here if no one cares if you win or lose in bowl games?
I'm with you.
Why are we keeping score? Why do we not just turn it into a spring game or a winter game?
That's what it is. It is a spring game.
Turn it into a winter jamboree.
Yeah.
If that's the case.
And look,
this game doesn't count. We're not keeping score. We're just running drills for next year, which, by the way, half this team might not be here because they can always just enter the transfer portal and leave anyway. I mean, come on, man. Where's your damn pride?
Well, that's part of the problem. There is none. There is no pride. I said the same thing on Monday. There's no character. People don't have the desire to finish. And because these games are now meaningless, they're now meaningless because of the way the players and the coaches approach the games. I mean, we're not approaching these bowl games with an all-in mindset. We're not approaching these bowl games like they want to be won, and yet they are. I mean, that's what they are. They have become I think you said it was Josh Payton who said it. It was a pre-spring game. It is. It's a spring game, part one. I mean, if the good players aren't playing, I heard somebody the other day say, well, the only purpose of our bowl game was to see who's going to be starting next year. If that's the purpose of the bowl game, is to see what you have coming up next season, I don't know that we should be playing the game. I don't know. Kirk Herbstreit said a couple of years ago we need to get rid of. I don't know the solution. I just don't like it.
Compare that, Cole, to what Cam Scadabo said about Arizona State and how much it means to him to have been an Arizona State Sun Devil.
ASU's changed my life forever in a good way. Simple. They've supported me through everything, put me in a position to be successful. So I thank everybody in the ASU community and Coach Dillingham and his staff and this kid next to me right here. They changed my life forever.
Give me 40 of those guys and no Cam Ward.
And of this.
Just to finish the right way. Finish what you started. I have kids, not even my daughter and my son be like, oh, why didn't you play in the last game? And I'm like, I didn't feel like it, or I feel like I would get injured. I don't want to give them an excuse, if they feel like they got to finish homework. Oh, I felt tired. I didn't feel like doing it. You did it, Illinois, and then I got to live with that. But no, I want to show them how to, finish what you start. When you start it, finish it. And that's a good quality in a person.
It's a good quality in a person, says Demetrius Knight. I don't know. You know what my biggest issue is, Diesel, with all of this? I don't understand why people can't wrap their mind and grasp this kind of character. It's almost like they're the bad guys because they want to finish. They want to finish what they started. Yeah. They have high morals, high character. They have pride. They have intent. They want to finish what they started. But yet, when we get on here and defend them, we're looked at as the bad guys because we're just upset. No, it's just that we as a society, I don't know why I put 9 S's on the front of that. We as a society and world have lost so many morals, have lost so many things that used to make people strong and full of great character. People just don't care anymore. That's the problem.
I mean, are they scared? Are they afraid to go get hurt and play in a bowl game and give every last ounce they got to the university that set them up for life? I mean, you've probably seen Rocky 3. I've seen Rocky 3. Madcraft's seen Rocky 3. Remember that scene on the beach where Rocky is talking to Adrian? He's like, I'm afraid. I'm afraid if I go out there, I'm going to be seen as a fraud. I'm afraid.
Yeah.
I don't want it no more.
Yeah.
Is that where we're teaching these kids it's okay to quit on their teammates. And they're not just quitting on themselves. They're quitting on their teammates. And somehow people have convinced themselves that that's okay. It's okay to quit on your teammates. It's okay to put a loss on the other 100 some odd guys on that team's resume because you think you might sprain your ankle in a bowl game.
Speaking of Rocky, have you seen I don't know why it's you said Rocky, now Sylvester Stallone. Have you seen Tulsa King?
I haven't. I hear it's really good.
Oh,
I hear it's
really good.
I've got a backlog of shows that I need to go to.
And I've got 2 of them.
Apparently Landman is excellent.
Oh, it's great. It's great.
I gotta start Yellowstone because I never did.
Yellowstone. So not to get off on a tangent, Yellowstone. Let me just close those curtains before I get shot. Yellowstone sucks.
Really?
Yeah,
I watched one episode and I thought it was a soap opera.
I did not like it.
I didn't care for it.
I watched just 3
family drama screaming at each other. And
no,
I didn't think it was all that interesting.
But Landman's phenomenal. I've caught up on 8 episodes so far.
There's too much content. There's too much content out there. Just like there's too many bowl games. I think, truthfully, Cole, we need to drastically increase the criteria for making a bowl game and take it from 6 wins to probably 8. If you take it from 6 to 8, we'd have to go back and look and see how many teams on average finish with 8 wins in the season, subtract 12 because 12 teams are getting into the college football playoff. But if you're telling me now we've got more like 10 bowl games, on top of the college football playoff. There's 20 other teams that won 8 games that didn't get into the playoff. Now I think you've got a compelling product. And I know a lot of advertisers aren't going to be involved here. You know what? Team up. Let's have 3 of you sponsor one bowl game. I don't care. Just let us see better football and make these bowl games matter again, because we don't need to see the 6 and 7 win teams out there playing.
Texter says Ward, talking about Miami's Cam Ward, broke the touchdown record and quit after if I was an NFL person, he would not be drafted by my team. He's a cancer.
Well, Caleb Williams knew he was going to be the number 1 overall pick, and he shut himself down. He didn't go to anything in the offseason. If I'm an NFL talent scout, I'm burying that in the back of my mind. I understand that Cam Ward is extremely talented.
He is.
But I'm also burying it in the back of my mind that guys who are quitters don't give you everything they've got. And look at Caleb Williams. He quit on himself in the offseason.
Atolo asked me this on Monday. I'll turn it back on you and spin it on you, Diesel. If you are whoever, it was the New York Giants until they won on Sunday. I don't know why. If you have the number 1 pick and your 2 choices are only Shedeur Sanders or Cam Ward, who do you take?
Ooh.
I said Cam Ward.
Oh, man.
Just to let you know. That's the only ones you can choose from. I took Cam Ward. I think he's a better overall player.
Yeah, I think he's a better player. Is he a better teammate? Is he a better person?
I don't know. It's a good question.
What do I value in my locker room? Do I need a glue guy at quarterback, or just do I need somebody who can go out there and sling the ball all over the place and his teammates don't like him?
I know. It's a tough one. Both are good.
You know, like, have you ever heard the old adage that when guys go into prison who have done really, really awful things, other prisoners know about it and they will beat that guy down for doing what he did out in the real world? I have to believe that something similar to that happens in NFL locker rooms.
Ooh.
If I'm a 4-time Pro Bowler playing left tackle, you know, and I'm guarding your backside, why do I want to fight like hell for somebody who quits on his team? I know that you quit on your team, because if I think that my team is drafting Cam Ward, I go back and start looking at Cam Ward tape. What do I need to do? How do I need to learn how to block for Cam Ward better? And then I go say, whoa, why didn't he play because he didn't want to? Nah, man.
It's interesting. I know that everyone's split. You either are on one side or the other here, but we'll continue to see if this translates into the NFL. I think you're onto something there. Georgia did get the ball back, so they have a chance to go make this a game again. We'll see if they can capitalize. Also tonight, a game we have not talked about, Diesel, at 7 or 8, 7:30, 8 o'clock. Let's see.
8 o'clock.
8 o'clock. Duke. I mean, get your popcorn. Are you a kettle corn or a butter guy?
Ooh, we got my wife got a bag of like mixed kettle corn, like chocolate covered kettle corn. And so like every, it's like an 8-inch tall bag. Yeah. Every 2 inches was a different kind of chocolate. Oh my God.
I love kettle corn.
Oh,
I love it.
Good.
So get your popcorn ready, because I mean tonight, the Tax Slayer Gator Bowl, Duke with no quarterbacks. Grayson Loftus, the backup, transferred. Malik Murphy, the starter, he transferred. He's gone. They're going to play Ole Miss. And I know it's a meaningless bowl game.
Well, how many guys opted out from Ole Miss?
Not many. All right, I've got that. I'm glad you asked. So Ole Miss potential opt-outs, Juice Wells, surprise there.
Whoa. Who's surprised that Juice Wells quit on the team?
Trey Harris, potential opt-out. The transfer portal, Jaden Candy, the cornerback, right tackle, Micah Petrus, and third-string quarterback. And I think that's pretty much it. Now, on the Duke side, Malik Murphy obviously gone. Running back, Star Thomas, Grayson Loftus, as I mentioned, they're not there. Duke's starting cornerback, Kamari Robinson, and running back, Peyton Jones, didn't play in the finale. They're not expected to play. So besides Murphy committing to Auburn, everybody else should be there for Duke, but everybody else against Ole Miss. It looks like tonight Jackson Dart will have his plethora of weapons. The spread, do you know that? I don't know. Don't look if you haven't. Do you know the spread on this game?
I'm going to guess and say the spread as of right now is 14.5.
17.
Wow.
So Ole Miss is favored by 17 points. Again, Jackson Dart's playing. He's a really good quarterback, almost 4,000 yards. Tonight, by the way, Diesel, he has 3,875 yards, so he doesn't need much tonight. He'll get 4,000. He has 25 touchdowns and 6 interceptions. He's playing. He'll have his plethora of weapons. I know it's a meaningless bowl game, but with Lane Kiffin tweeting that out a couple of days ago about these blowouts, I think Ole Miss might beat the brakes off Duke tonight.
This might be an ugly one.
I think so.
This one's probably going to be over by halftime. When we come back, Grayson Mann of TigerNet.com is going to join the show talking about Clemson and their brand new defensive coordinator search. We don't know yet who it's going to be. We know who's not going to be calling plays on the defense next year for the Clemson Tigers, but who might they go after? What might Dabo's philosophy be when it comes to searching for a new DC? We'll talk to Grayson Mann next on the Fan Upstate. joins us right now to talk Clemson Tigers and the big changes coming on the defensive side of the football for the Clemson Tigers. Grayson, first, can you just go into your reaction when you heard that Wes Goodwin was not going to be brought back as defensive coordinator for the Clemson Tigers? Were you surprised, or is it pretty much a foregone conclusion?
Well, first of all, Diesel, you flatter me, man. You flatter me. But I hope you guys are having a happy new year. But just to the reaction, I think the writing was on the wall, especially after the Texas game, where I think Clemson's offense did enough in that matchup, especially late in the second half. And I think schematically, defensively, the flaws have been there all season. And I think it was time for a change. Obviously, nothing has been finalized from Clemson's side of it. But I think from what we reported last night at TigerNet is our understanding that Wes Goodwin has moved on and Clemson will be beginning their search for a new defensive coordinator.
Grayson, format breaker, Notre Dame, Georgia just kicked off. Your prediction today, who wins this game?
You know, I never thought Carson Beck was this game-changing quarterback. I've never really been too high on him since he's been the signal caller for the Bulldogs. I think I like Georgia in this matchup. I'm watching right now. Both defenses are flying in New Orleans. Glad that everybody's safe there. Obviously, after given the last couple of days. I think the Bulldogs win pretty convincingly today.
Wow.
But I think it'll be more from the ground game and just their overall physicality.
I like it. Going back to Diesel's point real quick Diesel's question rather about Wes Goodwin and the announcement that we haven't really heard but have heard from sources. From what you know, like what's going on behind the scenes? Is it contract buyout of why it kind of seems like we've heard sources announcing that this is happening, but we haven't seen an official announcement yet?
Right. It's pretty wacky, isn't it? It feels like the last time there was a big coordinator change with Brandon Streeter a couple years back, that it was pretty quick that you knew exactly what was happening. Official news was breaking, and then immediately there was a hiring point. I feel like that's sort of the process that's trying to be mirrored here, where I think Dabo in his coordinator search, he wants to have his guy ready to go. And obviously there are still a lot of factors to work out. Is the Oklahoma thing have a lot of substance to it? Is there other staff changes that Sweeney wants to make before just announcing it to the world, hey, this is what we're doing? And I think for that end, there's always a level of just, I think, continuity that they want to bring within this staff. And I think for this moving forward, I think 2025 is a very important year for this program, because I think on the offensive side, they finally have all of their kinks figured out and everything that I think the last couple of years have presented well. Well, who's the quarterback? How does Cade Klubnik going to look? What's the Garrett Riley offense? How does Matt Luke fit into the equation? I think going into 25, they have the most clarity they've had on that side of the ball since they've probably had in a few years. So it's very important to shore up the defensive side and the issues that really plagued them in 2024 so they really can compete for a national title next year. I think they really believe that, and they really want to get this right.
Hey, Grayson, we have to be careful and add the word allegedly to everything. Allegedly, this is happening. Supposedly, this is happening. What we're hearing is that this is happening. Feels like we're in some sort of a courtroom drama here. In what ways, how do you think Dabo Sweeney will sort of put his thumbprint and in the way he kind of handles everything, which is loyalty over everything, rewarding guys that want to be here for a long time on everything? Obviously, do you think that that style will certainly rear its head and be applied to this decision?
I think this style that I think people should probably approach is going to be an outside search within, trying to find more of an identity from what we've seen from his last couple hires, where he's going to go get guys that are at the top of the market. Matt Luke, obviously, a big-time name coming out of Georgia, head coach at Ole Miss, lots of experience there. Garrett Riley, one of the top offensive coordinators, the top coordinator in the country from TCU, bringing them to the national championship. Certainly, I think the standard there, at least on the offensive side, is there. And I think that's a pattern that he's going to want to follow on the defensive side of the ball to really complement the rise that we've seen from that side, especially in the last few years, where this year's really been an explosion, gentlemen, where I think Klubnik and this offense have proven that they're more than capable of pulling their own weight, where it felt like the defense under Brent Venables in 21 specifically was that we're really carrying the load there. So I think it's complicated, and obviously it's like a courtroom drama. We're having to use allegedly and what we've heard. Nothing's final, so it feels like an ongoing mystery to an extent. Certainly the wackier events that I've probably presided over, but I think, for my understanding, it's going to be a national search, and I think that they're going to be playing this very carefully.
Was there games in particular? Diesel and I were talking about this, Grayson, was there a game or games in particular that you saw and watched this year where you felt like if the defense would have been better, the outcome of this game would have been different?
I think I go to Louisville, South Carolina, and Texas, where I think certain adjustments, obviously Louisville going into that game, that was the week before the inaugural college football playoff rankings. Clemson was 11th in the country. And obviously the offense had its struggles that night, but you were starting to see picking up some steam in the second half. Obviously you're down by 19. I think it was 33-14 at the time. So it's a little bit of a mixed bag there. But I think South Carolina and Texas in particular in your SEC matchups where I think adjustments throughout the game where you come out and you feel like you have a solid game plan. It felt like Wes Goodwin and this defense had Lenore Sellers in check for the most part, up 14-7 there in the fourth quarter, and you switch to a more nickel look and you take Sammy Brown off the field. I feel like that was one of his – I think that ultimately might have been one of the straws that finally broke the camel's back there, where you had a legitimate shot to beat your rival at home, to potentially clinch yourself a top 4 seed, as we saw in the unfolding weeks in the college football playoff landscape. That might have been, plus an ACC championship, enough to maybe host a playoff game in Atlanta, maybe host a playoff game in New Orleans. We don't know. There's a lot of obviously circumstances that surround that. And then you look at the Texas game where you give up almost 6 yards of carry. You give up 6 yards of carry, where you just saw Arizona State limit them to 2. So triple the amount of yardage that you're getting on the ground ultimately costs you a shot, where I felt like Clemson, once they settled in, competed for a large part of that game. Klubnik played one of the better games of this season. So I think too many times there, it was the same flaw coming at Clemson, especially on the ground, and it cost them maybe a shot at a deep run or maybe a shot at better seeding early on in the year.
Grayson Mann of TigerNet.com joining us here on the Fan Upstate. Do you think Dabo will be willing to hire a pro portal type of guy for this defensive coordinator role, and kind of put your prediction pants on here for a second and look a year in the future, 2 years into the future? How willing do you believe Dabo might be to let that pro portal mindset of some hire maybe change him? Because we did see Clemson dip into the portal just a little bit this offseason.
Right, and this was a unique year where they had needs. And I think Sweeney, obviously he's talked about, hey, we go into the portal all the time to get guys like Paul Tyson. I don't necessarily count that for sure. But going into the portal this year to get Tristan Smith and Will Helt from Purdue, I think saw a little bit of a shift in philosophy there, where they identified needs. They needed somebody that could play competently aside TJ Parker on that defensive line. They go get the top edge rusher in the portal. They see a position in Phil Maffa this year. I think it was a great lesson for them, where you see Phil Maffa continue to deteriorate and you don't really trust the depth behind you. Well, I think they've seen and identified they have some pretty good talent at the wide receiver spot, and now they can get some depth to add that with Tristan Smith. So I think there is a shift, and I think that it's more of what people have said. I'll see it when I believe it with Dabo in the portal. I think this was the offseason, or at least the early steps of it, where we've begun to see that from him and this staff. So I don't necessarily know if hiring the guy is going to be solely focused on the portal, but I could definitely see a more pro philosophy, as you alluded to, Diesel, someone coming in and just further inching on, hey, this is something we need to attack, and someone who understands what he has in defense, especially if they go get somebody from a different conference that is bringing in that talent on a consistent basis. Maybe there's that extra edge that only can serve this program in a positive way.
Grayson, there was a lot of buzz when Cade Klubnik announced a couple of days ago that he was returning. I don't know why so many people were surprised by that, but I think it was expected. Tell me if you disagree with that or push back, but obviously him coming back has to be the first piece in my mind in order for Clemson to get over that hump and get back to a national championship.
Right. And what an amazing thing a year can do for just in terms of the opinion on a player in the fan base, where I think a central question was answered in 2024 about what Cade Klubnik can be at Clemson and what his legacy will be for years to come as one of the quarterbacks that led Clemson back to the promised land of the CFP. And so I think I expected him to return, but there was that thought in the back of my mind, who's going to be in his ear? Who's going to tell him, hey, this isn't a really strong quarterback class. You could maybe bump up to a round 2 grade. Who knows what people are telling him. But this is a Clemson guy through and through, someone that wanted to see it to the end. And I think for Klubnik, I think the reason you're seeing that excitement is because of how he performed, and maybe recognizing that talent they say, hey, maybe he decides to take his talents elsewhere. Maybe he wants to go to the NFL. I think him returning, it excites people for what this team could become in 2025, given where they ended up to end the season. It wasn't the Gator Bowl. It wasn't the Cheez-It Bowl, whatever food bowl that they're going to end up in. It was the college football playoff. And I think this group and this fan base believes behind Klubnik, they can go further next year.
Grayson, we'd be remiss if we didn't spend at least one or two questions on the hot start that Brad Brownell's team has had on the hardwood. After losing 2 straight to Memphis and South Carolina, they've won 2 straight against Wake Forest and Stanford. Should have at least 2 more winnable games in front of them with Cal and Louisville before it starts getting a little bit tougher facing Florida State. How important are these next 2 games to build that little bit of momentum before they started getting into the tougher part of the ACC schedule?
Right. You never know what you're going to get with a 10-day break, especially in basketball where it's so rhythm-oriented. And you came out and there was a little bit of a sluggish start. I think Stanford got a little bit too many freebies on the three-point line. But what I've started to see is a positive trend forward on some of their issues where defending threes and making threes have started to see a little bit more of a positive trend. And I think this team defensively, I think Jaden Zachary is probably one of the better on-ball defenders that I've seen in quite some time, especially at Clemson, where it feels like every instance there's an opportunity for Zachary to poke the ball away for a steal, and it just galvanizes this group. You really can see it on the court. Someone like Dylan Hunter having 6 steals yesterday is just ridiculous of a stat. He's really grown into a reliable 6th man. And I think this team has the right ingredients to have a deep run in March, but I think these next couple games are very important because this isn't going to be – these aren't games where you go, okay, if they win these 2 games against Cal and Louisville, this is going to be a true resume booster. No, this is a really consequential loss if you were able to develop some of these 2. It's what kept them out in 2022, and I think it's what left them in 2023 where they had those strong wins, and they didn't stumble too many times down the stretch. So these next couple games are important in not only building momentum, but I think in a weaker ACC, each win is going to be important to not just stack, but to avoid a pretty consequential loss.
Grayson Mann, TigerNet.com. Grayson, I want to go back to the defensive coordinator conversation real quick. When you look at what Clemson could do with a hire, whether it be a guy like Tim Banks, who has a lot of traction, a really good defensive coordinator, or an internal hire with somebody like Lorenzo Ward, where do you see them going, and what have you on the beat heard as of late?
I think it's going to be a national search, Cole. I think they're going to go outside the program. I think sort of the, I guess, perception on internal hires right now may not be the best route, given how Goodwin and Streeter, those 2 internal experiments, both were deemed a failure at the end of the day. I think Sweeney has had a pretty good track record of hiring guys outside in the last couple of years, that being Matt Luke and Garrett Riley. Certainly Clemson is an objectively attractive destination to want to come to if you're a defensive coordinator perhaps on the rise, or maybe to say, hey, if I turn this product around, there's a head coaching job for me somewhere. Yeah. So I think the move is certainly going to be national. Now, where and who, I think there is still a lot of factors left to play. I think certainly some candidates are still playing some football this year. It could be in the Gator Bowl tonight. It could be still in the college football playoff. I think Sweeney's trying to weigh his options and truly make the best decision to give this team a great shot in 25.
Grayson, what are you hearing from, some of the stars, the younger stars on this defense, TJ Parker, Peter Woods, guys like them, and Sammy Brown especially, the talent that is there on this roster? Are they locked in no matter who this coordinator hire might be, or is there a fear that there might be some attrition across the defensive side depending on who ends up getting this job?
I think that's why it was so important, Diesel, for this team to get that retention taken care of first and foremost. I mean, you had social media announcements from Parker. You had Peter Wood saying, hey, I'm coming back. This is the place I want to be. And both of those kids, like weird saying kids, but those of those guys are going to be going to the NFL next year. And so I think a little bit of a weird mid-off-season transfer portal might disrupt some certain things that they've built here at Clemson. And I think this defensive line next year has the potential, regardless of who's going to be the coordinator, to be really special, especially when you add Will Helton into the mix. It takes a little bit more attention elsewhere, and I think it provides some good opportunities for those guys. I wouldn't be concerned about any transfers should the announcement officially be made. But I think that in this world of college football, you truly never know, but I would be pretty confident that nothing should alter depending on who's hired.
Grayson, you're the best, man. Appreciate it as always, and we'll do it again soon.
Absolutely. You guys take care. Happy New Year. God bless y'all.
You too. That's Grayson Mann, TigerNet.com. Little bit of breaking news. Nick Emanwari, as expected, has officially declared for the NFL draft. He put out a long letter on Twitter, and he said that basically this was the Citrus Bowls was his last game. He would like to thank God for giving him the opportunity to play the game. Thanks his coaches, his families, his teammates, and thanks the Carolina fans. And with that being said, he says he will forego his final year of eligibility and declare for the 2025 NFL draft.
I was going to ask, did he put a "with that being said"?
Yes,
in his letter, because I mean, could we just save some time here and without saying all that, just start your post with that being said, I'm out. I don't need to read all this garbage. I jumped straight down to the "with that being said, here's what I'm going to do."
That's what I jumped down to. I did. All right, Diesel, end of the third quarter, my pick of the Georgia Bulldogs, not looking too good.
Yeah.
You picked the Irish.
I did. I picked them 24-18 over the Bulldogs.
I just didn't know. I didn't know if I believed in Notre Dame. I didn't know if I believed that Notre Dame, the same Notre Dame team that lost to NIU, I just did not know. You know what? It was almost one of those, for me to believe it, I've got to see it. That's kind of how it was with Notre Dame today, and I'm seeing it. They're beating a good Georgia team.
We weren't entirely sure who they were after they beat up on Indiana, right? 27-17 win against Indiana. They looked defensively, they looked really good against the Hoosiers. But how good were they going to be against an elite team? Because it had been a while since they'd played a really good football team. I mean, you got to go back to the middle of the season, early in the season, when they played Louisville, who was a top 15 team at the time.
Yeah.
Outside of that, they played Texas A&M, that was shown to be frauds. They played and beat Louisville, who were shown to be frauds. They played and beat Navy, who looked pretty good, even though they dropped a couple games down the stretch. An okay Navy team, and they beat up on Army. But again, those are service academies, right?
Yeah.
Those, as good as the service academy teams are, beating up on a service academy team is like beating up on a good G5.
So if the score holds, and again, Notre Dame, if you just tuned in, Notre Dame is up 10 on Georgia. If the score holds, the teams that got to bye, Arizona State, Oregon, Boise State, and Georgia, all four teams will have gone 0-4 in the college football playoff.
Do you think that's enough to be the impetus for immediate change in the college football playoff number of teams and or format?
Not after 1 year.
Not
after 1 year. No, let's see if is it a blip or is it a trend? Let's see if it's a blip. If it happens again, 2 out of 3, maybe so. If Notre Dame goes on to win, you'll have Texas and Ohio State, who, by the way, play on the 10th of January.
You'll also have Quinn's new team against Quinn's old team.
Yeah, and I'm telling you, man, I know that Texas is good, but after what I saw yesterday, it looks like Ohio State. They're going to make – Ohio State has a chance to make me look really smart, and I'm not really smart. I'm really dumb. But I picked Ohio State to win the whole thing before the season started. And if they continue to play like this, they're going to make me look really smart. You have Texas, Ohio State on the 10th. The night before that, the 9th, which is 1 week from today, Diesel, you'll have Penn State in the winner of Notre Dame, Georgia, which looks to be Notre Dame. They're up 10 at the end of the third. Here's Kirby Smart live.
First thing you can do, they gave us a gift and gave us an opportunity to go for it. We didn't capitalize on it. We had a big stop on them. But right now they're driving the ball on us, doing a good job. We got to get some momentum back. We got to stop on defense. Turnover.
All right, thank you, Kirby.
That's Kirby Smart on, man, I'm telling you, Diesel, what feels like the end. I mean, you got 15 minutes. You're down 10.
Yeah.
Here's the problem.
They got no momentum. And
Notre Dame, look where they have the ball.
Notre Dame has the ball on the Georgia 27.
Yeah. You score here, it's over.
4,
I'll say it. If they score here, it's over. I know you say there's still 15 minutes to go, but if they go up 27-10, man, I don't know. 17 points in 15 minutes. I know it can be done, but Georgia's gotta. I mean, he's right.
If only Georgia had a Cam Scatterbo that would not let his team lose.
Deep ball incomplete.
Yep.
Deep ball. Yeah, they need a run game. You know, they used to Georgia's had that, but they're just not.
Yeah.
Even though they're as good, they're not as dominant as those Georgia teams we saw a couple of years ago.
I think you could look at this, and if you're a Georgia fan, you can still feel good about the season by saying, "Look, we clearly didn't have the team that we needed to be elite.
No.
However, we still won the SEC, and made it into the college football playoff. So even in our
beat
down
Texas
years,
twice.
we beat Texas twice. We had our quarterback go down, and we still hung in. I mean, I know you'd be disappointed considering how high the standard is at Georgia, but you can look at that and say we still had ourselves a pretty good year.
100%.
Coming up on tomorrow's show, we're excited to be joined by Matt Smith, Smitty of Sports Talk Media Network, to break down the Clemson DC moves, also the South Carolina game, and everything else in between. That's coming up next, or coming up tomorrow on the Fan Upstate and Wire to Wire with Diesel and Cole Bryson. Tolos.